Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story I was tricked into this fake marriage. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! In the beginning of the story, the Delay Empire begins a series of invasions, including the country of Sophen. The king of Sophen puts up some resistance, but is eventually assassinated by the emperor's advisor, Kaleid, who is believed to be the reincarnation of evil. During the war, the nobility who refused to take sides were stripped of their titles and forced to live as commoners. The protagonist, Leyrin, is the only daughter of a noble family and will succeed her father as head of the Ephron family. However, in this empire, you must be married to inherit that title. If she wants to maintain her family's wealth, social standing, and possessions, she will have to follow the norms and find a husband, or everything will be gone. While she is panicking, she comes up with a quick and simple solution to her problem. She considers having an arranged marriage and will search for a partner to marry her for a year. Leyrin approaches the head of the Nige Night Guild, a labor union that is known to be the best at selling private information, to help her find the husband she desires for her contract marriage. Leylin's mother sobs, thinking if she only pushes through with her husband's plans to let Leyrin marry Stan, they won't be having this problem, which Leyrin thinks is impossible because the guy is her own cousin. The protagonist is actually a 21-year-old college student who died in a traffic accident and was reborn as Leyrin, 21 years old and the only daughter of a count. She is happy to be reborn with a golden spoon, but she's sad since her country is dying. Her father lost his title and her family is exterminated, and marriage is the only option to save everything they have. She thinks of finding her possible husband the soonest, so she lets her mother rest and assures her that she will be fine. Soon after, she checks all the lists of the noblemen in their country but discovers no suitable man for her. Sir Hayden, the vice captain of the Ephron family knights, wishes to talk to her. A 23-year-old noble who is talented, well-behaved, and devoted to his family. Though she feels he would make a good husband, he is engaged to and in love with Sarah, her maid. He then hands her a document and asks her to carefully read it, while our girl here thinks he's about to propose to her. LOL. What he means is for her to carefully look at the list of noble marriage candidates. But the candidate's profile is not guaranteed. However, there is a way to find accurate information through the Nige Night Guild. They provide any kind of information in exchange for money. She dislikes imperial marriage, which allows men to have lovers after marriage, and is concerned that her future husband would be a jerk. Then she realizes that she can just go to the Nige Night Guild to find her a contractual marriage partner to fix her troubles for a year. Leyrin is confused as to why Sarah is crying, telling her that she should make Sir Hayden happy, because if Leyrin cannot find a suitable candidate to be her husband, he will have to fill in. The idea of it is making Leyrin furious. The next day, together with Sir Hayden, they went off to see the master of the Nige Night Guild. Along the way, she mentally prepares herself for her absurd plan to find a man willing to marry her for a year, in order to maintain her family's status and fortune for the time being. Sir Hayden offers to escort her inside when they arrive at their destination, but she decides to enter alone in the dark room and smells a lavender mix. She knows someone is there, but cannot see anything. She demands that the lights be turned on and wants to be seated. He complies by turning the lights with just a flick of his finger and allowing her to sit where she is standing. She can now see clearly and finds the man really pretty. Her chair is a bit uncomfortable, so she transfers to a bigger one. Well, the seat she is now sitting in is actually his bed, which surprises her even more, and she asks how he can sleep in such a small bed. He simply sighs and thinks she's extremely interesting. He asks her directly what her request is, but before she responds, she insists that he put out his cigarette, which he says is a sedative to make him sleep. He then charges her for the next question and continues to charge her as she speaks. She calmed down and asked him how much he would charge her. He demands 3 gold coins from her for the late-night visit without an appointment. She thinks about it before throwing the coins to him, which surprises him because a lady like her can toss money so casually. She doubts his abilities and puts him to the test, asking if he knows the reason for her visit, and to her surprise, he knows she's looking for a husband. After that, they get down to business, with him asking Leyrin what she's looking for and her responding that a baron or lower status noble in their 20s is ideal. She goes on to say that she wants someone who's not greedy for titles and is open to the thought of adopting a child. But he is skeptical of someone of low social standing who isn't interested in titles will agree to marry so quickly. She then adds that she wants a man who is kind, and he clarifies things by asking if she wants a man who likes money and women or a nice guy. He asked her to define nice again. While contemplating her response, she examines the man in front of her, his long legs, big hands, and broad shoulders. And voila! A nice guy for her is someone who is both hot and handsome, so having a better appearance is preferable because, as a countess, she will be doing all the work anyway. As they continue to discuss all the attributes she desires for her future husband, she mentions that she only needs a man to play the part of her husband for a year. He now understands why she doesn't care about a guy who loves money and women, because all she wants is a contract marriage. He asks her if she has any intentions of making things work with her husband once the contract expires, and she flatly declines. He continues to ask her about the contract terms and conditions and the payments. She then informs him that she will provide sufficient compensation for him to live comfortably during their marriage and after the contract has expired. Our girl is rich. As long as he behaves himself in public, she doesn't mind if he sees other women. All she cares about is the welfare of her people. He thinks she's clever for planning a one-year marriage contract, so she has the entire year to find her successor. This is because every spring, the royal banquet is held to introduce the newly appointed family heads, and this year's banquet is scheduled for this month. He inquires about her plans for adopting or having her own child, to which she objects since it's all pretend, so there's no need for intimacy, and opts to discuss the topic with the candidate herself. To conclude their agreement, he asks her to meet him at the capital the next day. The next day, Leyrin prepares to travel to the capital while her mother worries for her. She has no choice but to go, no matter how dangerous it is, and encourages her mother to trust her. The truth is, she is nervous as this is her first time to be away from her parents, and Sir Hayden notices her worried face and assures her that he would protect her till the end. The knights inspect all carriages on the way to the capital, and they learn that the region's lord caused a rebellion but hasn't been arrested, so they are tightening security. Sir Hayden is having a bad feeling and suggests moving with others, instructing Chen to go full speed. Leyrin senses someone behind them, and their carriage starts to rattle. Sir Hayden begs her to keep quiet, but instead, she goes out to check on Chen, who is in danger since a man with a bloody sword is about to attack him. Sir Hayden races for her too, and both of them see the man's sword dyed in blood, his black hair, blood-red eyes, and an endless thirst for blood. She can feel she'll die a tragic death again this time. Just then, she smells something familiar and sees the man go down their carriage while holding his cigarette. She thinks it's sedative, but she uses the chance and maneuvers the carriage at full speed away from the man in black, whom she believes is the crazy killer Kaleid. Meanwhile, an unknown noble learns about Kaleid's return to the capital. From what he knows, the reason why the Empire conquered all kingdoms was to learn more about the star fragments, and Kaleid is supposedly looking for it. 1 week after Leyrin arrives in the capital, she gets so busy with the banquet preparation that she gradually forgets her encounter with Kaleid. It's been 11 days, but they still haven't heard from the guild, and they can't wait any longer for fear that the license will not be approved in time for the banquet. They have no choice but to use their last resort, which is to marry Hayden. She never sees Hayden as an adult because he's like a brother to her, and she has seen him grow. As she is about to sign the marriage contract, a man from the Nige Night Guild intervenes, handing her the information he has gathered from the husband candidates she might be interested in. She then orders Hayden to wait outside so they can start their discussion. The first candidate is young, but seems to be a good fit for her, so she needs more options. The man in the hood appears to be greedy and sells the other candidate's files for 10 coins. She agrees and examines the second candidate's file, discovering that he is a pedophile with good looks, so she removes him from her list. The third is also attractive, but he has 3 wives to support. Though she's fine with it since they will only be in a contractual marriage, but she just can't help but think of him as a scammer. Therefore, he's still a no. She then looks into the final candidate's file and finds his information matches her ideal husband. A 26-year-old baron who has his own business and has no scandals. But she hesitates to look at the candidate's picture. His profile seems too perfect to be true, so she suspects that his face might be the issue. She once again opens the fourth candidate's file and mispronounces Kaleid's full name as Delay Kaleid, trying her best to read the unfamiliar Empire's language. And when she sees the photo, only 2 words leave her mouth, and that is, he's hot. I mean, she's not wrong. That would be my reaction as well. She slams the file shut after viewing the 4th applicant, since she needs to calm down. She can't help but fantasize about the 4th candidate's good looks, which makes her think of Dionysus asking her to be responsible for him, which she really will. Her decision is final, and she has chosen Kaleid. Well, Kaleid did point out the correct pronunciation of the name, but she's really an airhead and didn't realize that it is the crazy killer's name. The man examines her further as to why she chose the 4th candidate. Simply put, she thinks he's a nice guy, aka handsome. The guy can't help but laugh and thank her for the compliment before he starts burning all of the files. Looking at how she just quickly scans the file, it appears she is unaware of the 4th candidate's job. When the guy tells her that the 4th candidate works for 9 Knights, she merely assumes he's a chef. She is so caught up in her own thoughts and remembers the profile that says he doesn't like women, which makes her think Kaleid might be gay. LOL. She keeps trying to remember his profile when the name 9 Knights starts to sound familiar to her. Finally. She realizes that her fake marriage will be with the 9 Knights Guildmaster Baron Kaleid. And while smoking his sedative, he admits that he is the Baron this whole time. But from what she remembers, the man in the hood has blonde hair, so to stop her from mumbling, Kaleid removes his hood to reveal himself. Leyrin is so smitten with Kaleid that she thinks he can rule the world with his good looks alone. This girl is too shook to even recognize that he's the man on top of her carriage. And to receive Kaleid's payment, the two start to discuss their contract. Their contract specifies that they must share a room but are not permitted to have any skinship. And Kaleid wants to ensure that this also applies to her, and she agrees, though secretly, she regrets inserting it in the first place. As for the payment, he wants 4 times the initial allowance, but Leyrin refuses, since after their contract, he will be receiving much bigger compensation money. He is aware of this, but instead of monetary compensation, he desires the Ephron family's ownership of the Turtle Hills on the Shea coast. She intends to give him more, but since this is all he wants, she accepts his side of the bargain. And in order to complete their contract, they sign both their marriage license and their divorce papers at the same time. Before Kaleid leaves, he asks for the payment, and off he goes. Following, Hayden enters the room, informing Leyrin that a carriage from Sir Delisa Ephron is waiting for them. After they get married, Delisa absorbs the Countess's last name since her position is higher than his. So no one from Leylin's side knows that he's the Kaleid. She looks happy and informs Hayden that their mission to find her a husband is complete. He seems relieved since the 9 Knights is a guild that cooperates with the Imperial, giving them an advantage. They arrive at the Baron's manor with Aiden, the butler, welcoming them. He then escorts Leyrin to her room and feels shy just thinking she'll be sleeping in it with Delisa. And from the way the butler speaks to her, it appears that he also is a member of the 9 Knights and is aware of their contract. Meanwhile, Kaleid is somewhere in the palace, having cruelly murdered a noble in front of a huge number of nobles when the Prime Minister, rather than arresting him, demands that he do his killing quietly. Kaleid's guild was formerly an intelligence group under the direct orders from the Emperor until he proposed to disguise it as a guild. He pretends to offer information while murdering nobles who seek knowledge to assassinate the Emperor. When the Prime Minister sees the dead man, he can only sigh and calls Kaleid a crazy killer. Kaleid arrives home to find Leyrin already asleep, and for some reason, he doesn't feel irritated by her presence. He sits next to her and wonders what's so different about her when she suddenly cries in her sleep. Leyrin is having a nightmare. She can smell death everywhere, making her panic. Then she sees a man with bloody hands holding a sword. In her dream, the man lets the sword go, but gets swallowed by darkness till he asks for help. Leyrin grabs him and successfully pulls him out of it and discovers that it is Delisa. All of a sudden, she reaches for Delisa and sobs his name, but when he begins to caress her, she calms down and falls asleep like a baby. The next day, she wakes up not remembering the context of her dream, but she does recall Delisa was surely in it, brightening her mood. Just in time, Anne, her maid, enters her room and requests that she get ready as her husband has sent someone from Dalia Atalair to prepare her dress for tomorrow's banquet. Leyrin has no clue why she's so excited about it, while Anne sobs as she tells her that the said fashion shop is the greatest house of fashion, and Madame Hain herself came to adjust the dress for her. Soon, Eddie Hain, the owner of Dahlia Atelier, arrives looking so fabulous and greets the countess. Leyrin thinks Hain is super chic, so after a hearty welcome, Hain immediately unveils the dazzling gown rich in gems she has prepared for her. Leyrin tries it on, and Hain begins the final adjustments, all the while filling her up on all the newest trends and latest gossip circulating in the capital. Though she finds it useful, she finds it unusual and wonders whether she is one of the 9 knights. She then naively asks about her relationship with her husband, causing Hain to pause for a while, not expecting Leyrin to begin questioning her, and informs Leyrin that she has simply received a dress order from her husband. But Leyrin believes otherwise, believing that no famous person such as Hain would assist her with her dress. When they finish the fitting, Leyrin invites her to remain for dinner, but Hain's expression looks so terrified that she quickly declines and runs away. Kaleid returns home that evening, only to be disturbed by Aiden, who, on the Emperor's orders, inquires as to whether or not Kaleid has already visited the location where the star fragment might be found. Aiden is shocked to learn from Kaleid that he did not visit the location, as he has been looking for it non-stop up until this point. This is the first time Kaleid has disregarded the Majesty's orders. This is all because Kaleid discovers something more intriguing than the star fragment: Leyrin. She's like a breath of fresh air, and when he saw her terrified expression, his heart raced for the first time. Yep, he finds her faint smile alluring. When Aiden asks if he would accept his title, for the first time he does not refuse, and now he plans to discuss the matters with the Emperor. Aiden then takes his leave while Kaleid lies beside Leyrin. Her hand accidentally brushes against his. He startles and can't believe he's feeling warm, and he even starts to not hear things anymore, which he couldn't do without his sedatives. But as he lets go, the darkness returns. Leyrin could be the solution. Anne's terrified face is the first thing Leyrin sees when she awakens. This is because she has heard that nobles have been murdered at the royal banquets over the past 2 days, and that Kaleid is responsible. Anne is concerned about Leylin's safety at the banquet tomorrow, but Leyrin doesn't think they need to worry too much because if the killer really intended to kill her, he would have done so in the carriage. Today is her first meal with her husband, so she took extra special care to look her best. And when Delisa arrives, he greets her by calling her Rin Rin, and our girl here, blushing, is still processing the way he calls her. Then she follows suit, calling him Del, a pet name that Delisa particularly likes, and the two proceed to dine peacefully. Meanwhile, Aiden fears that Kaleid has already killed the countess, so he checks on them and informs them that their bath is ready. Delisa extends the invitation to wash up. Together, making her malfunction, hit Delisa and run away. Remember the 3 other candidates? The profiles that Leyrin read about them are actually not true. The guy is not a pedophile, and the other one has no 3 wives. They are actually members of the guild, and everything is planned out by Kaleid, who has already been interested in Leyrin from the start and knows she'll pick his profile the best. When she walks into their room, the scene with Delisa in his nightgown, reading papers, drives her insane. She notices his wet hair and suggests he dry it first before sleeping. Delisa, being flirty, requests her to dry it for him, and while she's doing so, she asks him if the rumor about Kaleid's appearances is true. Delisa tries to avoid the question by acting all cute, so she flies back to her side of the bed and the two go to sleep. The next day, she's busy preparing for the banquet with the help of the maids. One maid asks her worriedly if she knows what her husband's sedative is and suggests that she should remind him to smoke it, or else it would be dangerous. Leyrin merely guesses it's some type of medicine and promises to remind him, making the maids relieved. She looks gorgeous in her dress. Now that she has a marriage contract, all that's left is to finish the banquet and she will be able to control their territory again. And as she descends the stairs, her husband's appearance delights her. Inside the carriage, Leyrin finds Del's new look so pleasing to her eyes. As she stares at him, she recalls the maid's warning about his sedative and brings it up to him. He can't since it's forbidden in the palace, which bothers her because she knows it's his medicine. That's unusual to hear from her, but he assures her that he'll be fine as long as she's with him. She glances out the window and sees a long line of carriages waiting to enter the palace. She's surprised that the soldier let them in before anybody else and speculates that it is a perk of being the leader of the Nige Night Guild. When they arrive at the palace, they are announced as Countess Ephron and Kaleid. Not sure if she's hearing it right, she keeps on checking around thinking the killer is out there somewhere and convinces herself that she simply misinterpreted the language. She notices an oddity in the crowd's reaction and informs Delisa that perhaps that person is present, making him laugh. She starts to get anxious, grabs Del tightly, and decides to trust him. She overhears ladies chatting about her, and she proudly greets them while holding Del. They are unable to move when they see Kaleid beside her, but our girl is so dense that she just thinks that they find her husband handsome and tries to gatekeep him. Just then, a man introduces himself to her as Peyton Fabian, the new Count of Fabian. They greet each other, and as they are about to shake hands, Del slid his hand over hers. Smooth. Then Baron Gerwin interrupts and calls her name, not by her title, which is very insulting. The Baron continues to make fun of her, whether she really got married or not, until Del steps in to claim his husbandly status. The clear announcement surprises everyone, and their reaction baffles Leyrin. The Baron, who has no idea who Delisa is, insults him by claiming that if he didn't have his wonderful looks, he'd be the one for her. Delisa is done being quiet and starts strangling him with one hand. She is witnessing her husband trying to kill the guy with ease, and then Leyrin starts to recognize his red eyes. She quickly grabs him, asking him to let go, while Del just casually asks her why. She then notices everyone is panicking, and not even the royal knights are trying to stop Del. She thinks everyone is acting strange and still denies her sweet Del is that guy. She finally accepts that they do look alike, but their personalities are different. After all the thinking, she convinces Del to let the Baron go and talk to her. Thankfully, he agrees, causing the Baron to collapse and the crowd to go into an uproar. They call him a murderer and recognize him as Kaleid. She cautiously asks if he is Delisa Kaleid, and his denial almost causes her to fall over with relief. He then picks her and innocently identifies himself as Delisa Ephron. Leyrin realizes this is not looking good and fakes a laugh while asking him his full name before they get married. Hearing his response, her mind races with thoughts of her safety. Girl, finally, yes, he is the hottie killer! I'm not sure if he's really a sadist, but again, he finds her worried face cute. Just then, a royal messenger reads the Emperor's decree, appointing Archduke Kaleid to rule the kingdom of Sophen and demanding complete obedience to his orders. While her mind is still trying to make sense of everything, she hears him say, "This is the end," which she takes to mean that he is about to kill her. But he actually just wants to dance with her before they go home. She refuses and insists on going home. Leyrin is still shivering inside the carriage and feels even more scared when she catches him staring at her. He tells her to relax, but her mind is still racing over her impending death in his hands. She asks him about his sedative in an effort to calm tensions between them, and with a smile, he says he's fine as long as she's with him. She addresses him formally, but he demands that she talk to him like she did before, and with a quivering voice, she informs him that their contract is void since her terms require him to be a baron or lower. He smiles, leans forward, and asks her if she finds him scary. He believes she is afraid because of the carriage incident, in which she saw him pointing his sword at Chen, and explains that it is part of his work. She thinks perhaps he's not a crazy killer and feels relieved, thinking she will not die anytime soon. Meanwhile, Sir Hayden is horrified to learn that the Countess and Kaleid are married. The butler tells him to be careful what he says because Kaleid has been elevated to the rank of archduke and will take control over the entire Sophen kingdom. He then warns him not to get near the duke unless he is smoking his sedative, or he will lose his neck in an instant. Aiden greets them when they arrive home, while Leyrin keeps staring at him, enraged that he did not inform her of Kaleid's true identity. When Kaleid notices the steamy look she's giving the butler, he wraps his arms around her and demands to know why. She whispers to tell him that he doesn't have to pretend to be a jealous husband, but he reaches for her face, confessing he's actually jealous. She quickly remembers that his hands must have been full of her sweat earlier, and so she awkwardly orders him to wash his hands. He quickly realizes what she means, so Kaleid, being naughty, licks his hand instead. Her soul leaves her body out of embarrassment and runs away, leaving him laughing. I have secondhand embarrassment. Sorry, you guys. Anyway, Leyrin together with Sir Hayden and Anne are now discussing their new setup. Leyrin tells them that as long as he takes his sedative, everything will be fine, and she urges them to keep safe and alive while they are not with her. Sir Hayden informs her that though she becomes the Archduchess, she will still receive the assets of the Ephron family and will be able to manage their territory as well. The next day, she goes over the entire contract and any other documents that would help her invalidate their marriage, and she learns that higher-ranking nobles require the Emperor's permission for marriage. Since she thinks Kaleid's duke title is in the process, he should still be a baron on paper, which means her standing as countess is higher than his, allowing her to revoke their marriage. But then Kaleid arrives out of nowhere and tells her that their marriage has already been granted. She is surprised to learn that he already became duke 2 days ago. That is why he was able to have their marriage approved. And even their contract is also valid, since he was a baron at that time. She can't think of any other way out and is convinced that Kaleid scammed her into marriage. At the palace, the mysterious man asks Purcell Hilton, the head maid, if there were any problems during the royal banquet, and discovers there were minor issues, but they were all fixed. He also inquires about the lady that Delisa Kaleid escorted, to which she replies that she is Countess Ephron of Sophen Kingdom. The mysterious man is confused about Delisa's recent actions, since he knows his initial plan was to obtain the star fragment. Delisa tells a distraught Leyrin that it is his job to kill to get information. After explaining that he doesn't smoke in the palace because it would interfere with his ability to manage the nobles, he asks her if she's still afraid of him despite the sedative he's smoking. His sedative is like a chain that keeps a crazy dog at bay in the eyes of the public. She recalls the incident and accuses him of murdering Baron Gerwin. To her surprise, he confirms the Baron is still alive and asks her if she wants him to kill the Baron. The old man can be so annoying, but there's no reason to kill him. This time, Leyrin believes that the other documents are useless, so she lets him sign the adoption contract, but he questions if she really needs them now that she has the power of an Archduchess. She panics and tells him they only have to stay together for a year. Kaleid does not react and simply agrees. The truth is that he thought he was helping Leyrin since being Duchess would give her authority over Ephron and other nobles. He checks the contract and asks her to rewrite her name as Leyrin Kaleid. He's content seeing their names inscribed as husband and wife, wondering what to call their child. Our guy is thinking far ahead. She has no idea what he's trying to say, but the way he starts approaching slowly scares her. He has her cornered and makes fun of her by inviting her to shower together. She has had enough and kicks him, but instead of hurting him, she injures her foot. The following day, a doctor verifies that she has broken her ankle and instructs her to rest. She is now alone with Kaleid, but his lack of sympathy for her injury annoys her, and she starts to make fun of him by calling him ugly. She's such a child. But when she says she dislikes him, his expression looks hurt, so she takes it back, telling him it's a joke. But our guy here backs down from a fight, so he speaks the same words back to her, but adds that she's cute while smiling. He is hardly resisting holding her when Leyrin bombards him with questions, so he has no choice but to use his sedative. He admits that when confronted with a lot of information, he easily becomes sidetracked since he hears everything from the birds on the clock tower to the maids bad-mouthing him on the first floor. As a result, he smokes to help block the sounds. They return to their discussion, and she plans to finish packing and travel home, but she appears to have forgotten something. Kaleid reminds her that Sophen's internal affair is the responsibility of the Archduchess, his wife. Her. That means she needs to accompany him to the Sophen castle. She is now preparing to return to Kaleid's castle to fulfill her duty as the Archduchess. Her plan to bring home a husband is so not happening. And despite her longing to see her parents, she can't bring herself to tell them that she's married a killer. While she's thinking, Kaleid pops up out of nowhere, causing her to scream. Anne checks on her right away and sees her on the floor, thinking she's dead. Leyrin quickly explains that it's because her broken ankle hurts, and upon hearing this, Kaleid becomes worried and carries her. Okay, people here need to calm down. When she notices him smoking, she takes it from his mouth and swings it around, trying to turn it off. Aiden, who finds them cute, offers an ashtray, but Delisa talks too much, so she puts it back in his mouth, and her fingertips graze his lips. She recalls the embarrassment he caused her, and in revenge, teases him and prepares to lick her finger. But Delisa immediately captures her finger with his own mouth. "Sir, calm down." They enter the bathroom, and Delisa assists her in washing her hands because the cigar she intended to lick before contains a drug strong enough to kill a human. She believes him, but their position is a bit awkward, so she wishes to wash by herself when Delisa rests his head on her shoulder. She's now blushing, but when Kaleid mentions hearing her heartbeat, her anxiety goes up, and she silently pleads for help. And to add to her nervousness, Delisa wants to, devour her. She panics at the sound of those words and starts screaming for help. Okay, imagine a killer saying he wants to eat you. I'll be like Leyrin here. After the screaming, he brings her to bed and does nothing else. She wraps herself in their blanket, grateful that she is still alive, while Delisa is head over heels in love, and though he plans to let her go, the thought of her makes his heart race so fast. The next day, before getting into her carriage, she notices Anne is missing and tries to ask Hayden about it, but Delisa interrupts and tells her she's gone. She becomes serious and wants to see Anne immediately. Delisa, as an obedient husband, allows her to say goodbye. Leyrin keeps interpreting his words wrong, and by saying goodbye, she imagines Anne in her casket. Delisa notices how she doesn't look good and wants to touch her, but Leyrin retaliates by telling him how much she dislikes it when he touches her. Anne runs towards her just in time and apologizes for not informing her sooner that she will be working at the Dahlia Atelier. Leyrin breathes with relief and realizes she's been blaming everything on the killer, Delisa. Anne kneels down, sobbing, and begs her master to let her pursue her ambitions, which Leyrin gratefully grants, even congratulating her on her new job. Now inside the carriage, Leyrin sulkily learns that it is indeed him who refers Anne to the shop's owner. She apologizes for assuming that he murdered her maid, and Delisa simply laughs it off, admitting he can't possibly get mad at her because she's so adorable. He then begins to ask her when she plans to return Hayden and the other servants to Ephron, but he quickly brushes off his inquiry. The truth is, he wants to monopolize her by himself. Given the long ride back to Sophen, the two decide to eat along the way. She can't believe it has been such a stressful month that she hasn't even been able to look around in the capital and has had the misfortune of marrying a killer. But she can't deny that Delisa has the face of an angel. Her weakness. She heard the Emperor personally give Del his surname, Kaleid, an evil god who, according to mythology, devoured 3 other gods. She wonders if he is the reincarnation or if the Emperor is just bad at naming. They've arrived at the restaurant and Leyrin is lovingly savoring her meal while Delisa just loves staring at her eating. Until someone recognizes him and starts talking about how Delisa changed all for a girl, as if Delisa isn't there. He just won't stop, so Delisa decides to throw a fork as a warning, and it barely misses the man's hand. Leyrin learns that the young man is actually the Emperor, and what's more surprising is that the innocently handsome Emperor is already 32 years old. Delisa gets jealous of her questions, so he kneels down in front of her, makes her hold his face to help him muffle the noise, and just like that, she gives in. His good looks will be her downfall, so she decides to just do her best in the next life. LOL. The Emperor returns to the kingdom and wails about how jealous he is of Delisa's new marriage. The Emperor's inability to use his right hand is due to Delisa, but despite this, he insists on keeping Delisa by his side. Something Purcell simply cannot understand. When the Emperor expresses his desire to find an empress with whom he can grow old, he is referring to Purcell in particular, but she disregards it and takes it as an order to find him a woman. They finally arrive and she's now in their room. She can't believe she just met the Emperor, and she didn't expect his nice looks, the same face that orders Delisa to kill. Del discovers her sleeping soundly while Leyrin is experiencing yet another dream. This time, she's near Sears Bay, and sees Delisa with long black hair, sad over something buried. He appears to be crying in the rain, and then she finds him clutching her beloved umbrella from her previous life. He looks at her and turns away. Meanwhile, Del is looking at her helpless body and about to touch it when Leyrin suddenly starts talking in her sleep, stopping him from doing whatever he's about to do. So instead, he calls a doctor and has him check Leylin's broken ankle. And, much to the doctor's amazement, her ankle is entirely healed. But Del wants him to thoroughly examine it because the doctor in the capital indicated a full recovery would take 3 weeks, which scares the doctor, so he just bandages her again. The new attendant finds it weird, thinking maybe being near Kaleid somehow has an effect on Leylin's body, and chooses to report it to the Emperor. Leyrin decides to dine in the staff's canteen together with her new attendant Katie, when she overhears other staffs discussing the rumors that the new Duchess is gorgeous, and that she's the one controlling Kaleid, the war freak on a leash. She chokes on her water and orders Katie to hush so no one will know she's the Duchess. And she continues to listen to their admiration while thinking she looks like an octopus. Clearly, she hasn't looked in the mirror. The Grand Duke, who looks dazzling in white by the way, enters the canteen, finally finds his wife, and then carries her out. She gives him a lot of hits while she asks him to let her go, and when they leave, everyone starts cheering. They have confirmed the rumors, and the way the Duchess isn't scared of Kaleid amazes them. They are now in the carriage, but she can still hear the people talking about them. She then asks Del to sit beside her, orders him to extend his hand, and for the first time initiates holding hands with him. He is taken aback by her unexpected actions, and she says that she notices he continues to take his sedatives and suspects that it is due to the noise from the crowds. If the noise is bothering her, then she assumes Del must be suffering greatly too. Del blushes when he sees how much she cares about him and wonders if she can spoil him more. Turns out, she is his medicine. Like, literally. They arrive in Selen after an 8-day journey to the Sophen kingdom. The rumors have spread all the way to Selen, and who could blame them, since the Duke is always carrying her around? Now in her room, she chooses to remove her bandages and discovers that she is entirely healed, far faster than the doctor predicted. Later, Hayden and Leyrin have a final conversation before he and Chen return to Ephron. She intends to send them back home since she believes they should be reunited with their loved ones. After all, she will be returning home in a year as well. After they leave, she realizes that her hair color makes her instantly recognizable as the Duchess, so she decides to buy herself a wig. She chooses the black wig as her disguise, and it fits her perfectly, giving her the appearance of an adorable black cat. However, upon leaving the shop, people are still glancing at her even after she puts on a wig. She has no idea that black hair is very unusual, which is why they keep staring at her. Suddenly, she spots a familiar-looking man with silver hair, and she tries to run after him, but it's so crowded that she can only call out his name. Delisa finds her in the crowd, and for some reason, she asks him to catch the guy with silver hair who has already vanished, and Delisa can only spot an old man with gray hair. They are back in their hotel room, and it looks like someone is going to be sleeping in a separate room. Del is confused why Leylin's anger subsides as she considers that it wasn't Del's fault and that she might have mistaken the guy for someone else too. To tell you who the guy is, Stand appears to be the cousin she was supposed to marry 6 years ago. She remembers how she stormed out during the announcement, and Stand left Ephron soon after, not knowing he's the current prime minister of the empire. Delisa, ever the thinker, is also giving serious thought to the possibility of them sleeping in separate rooms. Such a cutie. She then takes it back, but wants him to find the guy and specifically asks for his whereabouts only, to which he agrees. He exits the room, informing her that he would pay a visit to the prime minister since he's also in Selen. Meanwhile, Stand is convinced that he heard a woman, possibly Leyrin, shouting out his name earlier. He was selected as her future husband when he was just 5 years old. He fell in love with our lovely Leyrin at first sight, and they have remained close ever since. Leyrin constantly tells him about her previous life, while he merely thinks it's just her imagination. His affections only became stronger, but when she flatly declined their engagement, he was left confused, while the entire Ephron family blamed him. As a result, He fled and was saved from bandits by the emperor, who discovered him broken-hearted. Poor boy. He has been working with the emperor to conquer the world. He thinks if he becomes someone of high rank, maybe Leyrin will want him back. That time, he discovers that the emperor wants something from Sophen, but has no idea where the exact location is, which we know is the star fragment. Moreover, he learns that the emperor helped him out of compassion for his own heartbreak. They are both experiencing unrequited love. The emperor is in love with Purcell, a former princess from a northern kingdom destroyed 20 years ago who has ignored the emperor's feelings until now. They're enjoying a drinking session one day when he meets a drunk Kaleid for the first time. His sedative at the time is a special alcohol that can only last for 5 minutes, and since Stand is known for his intelligence, the emperor orders him to find a solution to keep Kaleid from rampaging, promising to promote him to prime minister if he's successful. Which he did. His success, from creating the new education system to developing Kaleid's sedative and cigar form, was inspired by Leylin's story when they were children. Back in the present, the two finally meet, and Stand informs him about the impending typhoon in Sophen, while Kaleid appears unconcerned, making Stand furious. Kaleid knows that this is all because of his Rinrin, which Stand did not deny, and he takes the chance to ask Kaleid if the rumors are true. Stand, like the others, can't believe that someone as cold as him could fall in love. While Kaleid did not tell him that Leyrin is actually looking for him, but instead warns Stand to stay away. That night, they take the ferry to Sophen, and despite the fact that Leyrin used to be a swimmer in her past life, she is suffering from terrible seasickness. Del is becoming increasingly concerned as she has tried numerous medications and sleeping pills without success. He realizes that maybe the remaining drug in his mouth could help her, and so he attempts to kiss her, but then recalls Stan's warning that as long as he's taking his drugs, his bodily fluids such as saliva and blood should not come into contact with Leyrin or she will die. He quickly stops himself and goes out to find her medicine. The crew saw him jump from the ship but did not see anything in the water. Del can actually fly. Okay, Edward Cullen. He enters a kingdom and demands a medicine that can be taken without water, and so a few hours later, he returns to the ship with leaves all over him and gives the medicine to his wife. She's feeling much better, and Del's relief makes her blush. She still doesn't understand why he's so nice to her. He's in love with you, girl! When morning comes, they finally get to Sophen, where they are welcomed as the new Duke and Duchess of the land. She is amazed at how many people come to greet them, as if they've forgotten that their new leader is Kaleid, the killer. Then the after effects of riding a ship cause her to lose her footing, and without warning, and as always, Kaleid carries his wife to the castle, while the people are loving their public display of love and begin cheering for them. In her previous life, Leyrin had short brown hair, and she actually went to her friend Suhi's house before her accident. Well, she got ditched by Suhi, who informed her she's with her boyfriend, and so it was on her way home when she got hit by a car. While she's on the verge of death, she hears a woman with fiery red hair call her name, Buell, extending out her hand and promising to meet her soon. Just then, Leyrin wakes up from the dream about her past life, still not sure what that woman meant by the promise, and notices a fine man sleeping beside her. She still can't believe Del showered her with so much affection this morning, causing everyone to go absolutely bonkers. Del's reputation went through the roof when he made her his duchess, who was from Sophen. Leyrin now sees that maybe he agreed to their marriage so he could use her to win back the trust of the people. Even after discovering this, she feels as though it doesn't matter, finally realizing that she may be falling for him. The next day, Del shows her around the castle while Leyrin wakes up that this is now her reality, the Grand Lady of Sophen. She can only blame herself for wanting a contract marriage, but then she thinks something strange has happened because Delisa's profile was the only normal one among the candidates. Speaking of the candidates, 2 soldiers walk up to them and inform Del about the people in the dungeon, and while they talk, Leyrin recognizes one of the men as the second candidate, the pedophile. She approaches him, kicks his, and calls him a pervert. Did not see that coming, LOL! The poor guy can do nothing but slowly fall to his knees, while the other soldier explains that Sir Roderick Plupp, aka candidate number 2, actually prefers older women. She apologizes to Sir Plup for the fatal blow, but then asks if it really was a misunderstanding, while Sir Plup, who is still trying to cover it up, admits to being a pedophile, only to be smacked in the head. Now she believes that everything about the candidates is a lie, and that the Nine Knight have been deceiving her from the beginning, while Delisa can only stay quiet, unsure what to say. She's now in the garden and notices that the castle has less personnel, and so she learns from Katie that all of the high-ranking aristocrats are being held in the dungeon, while most of Sophen's soldiers were exterminated except for the Ephrains, who were able to go home safely. She has no idea that she's the only one who paid ransom to free her people, while other noble families thought she was just wasting her money, but the public praised her for it. Now that people love her, she suspects that Del is using her not out of love, but as a tool to win over the people. Meanwhile, Del is concerned that Leyrin has discovered the fake profiles, and more importantly, worries about what she thinks of him now. Well, to his defense, he was charmed by her at first sight. Just in time, Leyrin enters the room, sensing Del's concern and deciding not to make a huge deal out of it. She plans to help him fix his image while she can have Ephraim's land back with no feelings involved. At the same time, the girl with red hair is on her way to Sophen to meet Leyrin, calling her "my star." What could that mean? Leyrin mentions how understaffed the castle is, so Del, on a whim, gives her complete authority to manage their people. She then inquires about the nobles imprisoned and requests to have them released, but in exchange, Del wants her forgiveness for fabricating the profiles of the other candidates, while Leyrin behaves as if she hasn't discovered anything and instructs him to cook something for her as payback. Without letting Del respond, she excitedly informs him that she picked his profile at that time since it said he could cook well. It's not every day we can see Del's confused face. Such a cutie. 3 days later, she returned all female officers to their old positions, leaving just the jobs of head maid and butler vacant. She wants to formally designate Katie as head maid, but Katie declines because she is a member of the Nine Knights and would prefer to be appointed as her private agent instead. She goes over the list of potential head maids, and Bella Dereor stands out the most. Dereor's family owns the largest territory in Sophen. However, Bella stepped down from her duchess position and got their land confiscated by the Empire since she refused to get married. Leyrin decides to interview her, and to her delight, Bella turns out to be both super pretty and friendly. However, Leyrin still can't believe someone like her is fine with doing a maid's work, and is planning not to hire her, causing Bella to cry. She abruptly kneels in front of Leyrin while holding her hands, revealing that she's been wanting to see her since she was 12. Bella recalls how 10 years ago, during Sophen's celebration of the birth of the third prince, she overheard how clever Leyrin is, having mastered etiquette, the alphabet, and laws at such a young age. It's true that Leylin's past has helped her learn quickly, but her father really likes to exaggerate it. Bella goes on to explain that she has always wanted to meet Leyrin, but her letters have been disregarded ever since she mistakenly spoken the wrong words to Leylin's father by demanding to give Leyrin to her. LOL. She begs Leyrin to let her stay by her side and to accept her feelings, almost as if she's proposing marriage to Leyrin. When Leyrin wonders why she didn't marry to protect Dereor's estate, Bella becomes enraged and declares simply that she despises marriage and men. In the end, Leyrin has settled on Bella as her new head maid and now on a search for the new head butler. Although Bella suggests Costello Turner, Leyrin seems to recall that Costello is a woman, which is impossible since a butler has to be on the Duke's side all day. Meanwhile, Del is learning how to cook, and after the quick basics, he's able to perfectly cook 3 dishes to such perfection that the chef herself considers him the god of cooking. Though he can't really taste the food since his taste buds are numbed due to the drugs, the chef and the soldiers seem to love his cooking. He can't wait to let Leyrin try it for herself. But then he sees a sign sticking outside her office stating he is not allowed to enter, and hears someone inside talking trash about him. After her long day, she enters their bedroom to discover a dejected Del, who is now smoking heavily and whining about how she missed supper and the sign outside her office not allowing him to enter. When she sees how adorable he is sulking, she instinctively hugs him from behind and apologizes for not paying him enough attention. Then she quickly let go, claiming that it is an act of friendship and that even though they are on a contract, they should still be friends. Del takes advantage of the situation to hug her from the front. Well, as a friend. And Leyrin hugs him more tightly, sniffing the smell of the food from him. He surprises her with a delicious stew, but she has no idea that Del cooked it. He's glad they're getting closer, but his need for her is so strong that he didn't even notice when Leyrin tried to feed him. His lips briefly brush the spoon before Leyrin resumes munching with the same spoon, causing him to panic. Fortunately, he hasn't smoked in 30 minutes, which could explain why nothing is happening to her. Back in the dungeon, the nobles are waiting for their certain death since Sophen has fallen under Kaleid's control and they couldn't trust the rumors about Kaleid falling in love with the former countess, Sophen. But then a guard surprises them by saying that the Grand Duchess has given orders for them to return to their positions. Del shows her the sign on the door the next day, which she believes Bella put there. When the two enter the office, Bella looks terrified and quickly hides, leaving Leyrin no choice but to kick her husband out, who looks like an adorable puppy. She soothes him by hugging him, calling him honey, and promising to enjoy lunch together. Bella quickly hugs Leyrin and calls her Buell. After some time, with Leylin's help, she is able to stop crying. When Leyrin inquires as to her obvious fear of the Duke, she learns that Kaleid once tried to kill Bella. Leyrin promptly hugs Bella and assures her that Kaleid will no longer kill since the war is already over. While the once notorious killer is now in the kitchen having fun learning how to cook. Just the thought of his wife makes him blush, especially her sudden actions this morning. But the new head maid is starting to bother him, so he wants to keep a careful eye on her. After a few days, her work is progressively becoming more structured thanks to Bella's assistance. The imprisoned nobles appear in front of her, thanking her, but instead of taking all the credit, she wants them to support Kaleid's leadership, which they accept. Bella appears to be very competent at her job, and she has done work even without Leyrin telling her. Not only that, but their new head butler, Satella Turner, is an outstanding man as well. He has come up with a food reservation plan, which Leyrin approves. She then discovers that Satella never really wants to become a head butler, but after knowing she has completely changed Kaleid, he is determined to help the Duchess in any way he can. She is glad that people are gradually warming to Kaleid, but she worries since this act is only for a year. Leylin's mother writes her a letter, and after reading even a short bit of it, Leyrin begins to cry. Seeing this, Bella goes to get some milk so Leyrin can read the letter in private. While reading, her mother expresses their pride in her accomplishments, and Sir Hayden speaks about how the Grand Duke treats her well despite his terrifying side, and telling her that this may be her mother's last letter to her, in which she transitions from calling her daughter to Grand Duchess and expresses her hope that they can see each other again someday. Leyrin couldn't help but cry. Bella is walking back to Leylin's room, wondering if she will ever recognize her when she starts to tremble at the sight of the Duke. Del grabs the drink from her that she's delivering to Leyrin. After his investigation, he knows Bella's prior name is actually Jeanette Derriere, and after her brother's unexplained death and because her father's now in a coma, she becomes the next heir. Bella talks back, denying her own family, and as she walks away, Kaleid senses a power in her that makes him very intrigued. When he enters the room and hears Leyrin crying, he begins to regret his choice to make her a duchess. He thought a higher rank would make her happy. The next day, she schedules a tea time with the noble family in Sophen to assess the post-war situation and damages. The tea hour is going well until she mentions Del, which is still a long way off. Just then, Del arrives, and she uses this chance to change their impression of the Duke. What's the best way to show it? Through a kiss. Del has malfunctioned after her unexpected request, then pulls her and starts kissing her anywhere but her lips. The nobles have never imagined seeing Kaleid so in love, and how he looks so captivated by the Duchess. Look at that smile! Del is so done resisting and carries her back to their room, unconcerned about the nobles behind them. Bella finds the nobles in tears, feeling safe now that they have witnessed how madly in love the two are. Leyrin has given Del consent to keep kissing her, but she wonders why he starts acting differently, and learns it is because of her scent. She has a scent that has an unusual power that's similar to his, and now he notices that it is growing in her, so he decides to test it by smooching her more. She keeps him calm more than the drugs can do, as if he doesn't see her as a woman. Well, that's what she thought. Meanwhile, Bella is searching for Leyrin, concerned that if Kaleid continues to touch Leyrin, his memories may return, complicating everything for her. Suddenly, a god named Purpla descends, calling Bella her real name, Arbella. It looks like Kaleid has already beaten him and is back to get his revenge. He just pays Arbella a quick visit to inform her that in order to avoid being sealed by Kaleid, they must work together. But she understands that even if they combine their powers, it will not be enough to defeat Kaleid. He also mentions that it's him who's going to be with Buell forever. To give context, a long time ago, nothing could grow on the planet due to a feud between Jed, the fire god, and Purpla, the wind god. And so Arbella, the earth god, starts to intervene, and together with Kalda, the water god, they created the prisoners for gods, and so Kaleid was born. After birth, Kaleid is nothing more than a vessel with no will, so Kalda, the water deity, decides to reside and be sealed in his body first. They were able to seal Jed and Purpla by combining Kaleid's innate power with Kalda's water power. Arbella, on the other hand, felt scared, but according to her, she never meant to run away. Meanwhile, the Emperor is going through hell with paperwork because Stand hasn't returned and is still on vacation. And to make matters worse, he hears word that a rebellion has begun. He then sends a letter to Kaleid, ordering him to look for Stand, but Del, being Del, he simply burns it in front of his butler. After a month of serving Del, the head butler no longer fears him since the Duchess has made him more approachable. Speaking of the Duchess, Leyrin is upset as she didn't get enough sleep last night after Del kept smelling her like a freshener. However, as a Duchess, she has work to do, and today she's having a meeting with some administrative workers to investigate the anomalies she found after reviewing their annual account book. The Bernard family was responsible for the previous renovation of the mansion's meeting hall, but they did not disclose the expenses related to materials and labor. Instead of feeling terrible, they try to convince her that it was approved before they even arrived in Sophen. So Leyrin begins to scare them by invoking the Duke's name, which, of course, Bella exaggerates how much the Duke loves money. In the meantime, Del now really enjoys cooking and wants to offer it to Leyrin when he once again hears Bella talking trash about him. Leyrin plays along with Bella, warning them that the Duke, who loves money, won't even give her 3 golds, and that if he finds out about the messy account book, he might put them to death. When they realize it, they swiftly kneel to her and plead for assistance, so Leyrin tells them to bring a 5-year financial report. Well, Del hears everything from the outside, so he quickly orders his butler to call all the famous jewelers and plans to rebuild the construction of Margarita Castle, which is known to be covered in jewels. The first king of Sophen wants to give it to his wife, but fails due to a lack of funds. But money's not a problem for our guy. He really wants to show how gallant he can be when it comes to his wife. Satella promises to keep it a secret from Leyrin, and then informs him that Baron Sentaze, who has taken over the state of the Bernard family, has sought Del's audience, to which he agrees. The next day, Leyrin intends to buy a gift after learning that Seira and Sir Hayden are finally getting married. So she goes shopping with Katie, who says that perfume is the perfect gift for newlywed couples. Meanwhile, Baron Sentaze arrives, and despite his dislike of Del, presents the Grand Duke with a token of his support for his new leadership. He thinks the Grand Duke will come to like him, but instead, Del asks him about the taxes he should pay for the assets he owns. The Baron tries to act innocent in front of the Duke, which is not a good idea, sir. Del knows the Baron took advantage of the war and stole the Marquess state, Bernard's region, which is supposed to be his. As a lesson, Del emits a terrifying aura that causes the Baron to gasp and scream for help. The Baron begs for his forgiveness, which Del surprisingly agrees to, but wants him to pay for the overdue taxes immediately tomorrow without missing a single dime. After meeting with the Baron, his butler is curious since Del can just confiscate Bernard's territory. This is because Del knows Leyrin is working hard to uncover the source of corruption, which includes the Baron, and he doesn't want to disregard his wife's efforts. Leyrin and Katie enter a perfume shop, and she finds a perfume oil that is said to be specifically best for newlyweds, which she thinks is a massage oil. She buys one as her gift, then buys another one with lavender scent for her husband, which makes Katie and the owner blush. I wonder why. Anyway, after shopping, Leyrin overhears some ladies discussing the rumors about how frugal the Duke is with his money, which she knows have been spread by those administrative officials. But this quickly changes as they begin fangirling after hearing the Duke plans to give her the most exquisite jewels and even personally cook for her. She rushes to the kitchen after arriving home, still unsure whether the rumors about Dell cooking all of her meals are true. As soon as she walks in, she notices how lovely he is while cooking and quickly makes him do the Salt Bae, which is, well, 100 times more attractive. So we should call him Salt Dell. Leyrin is so taken with his cuisine that she wishes she could marry him so she could eat it every day, and Dell takes her word seriously. He asks her to stay forever and confesses his feelings. When he was 5, all he remembered was his name, Delisa, and found himself surrounded by fire and noises began to ring in his ears. The only thing that quiets him down are the tranquilizer arrows fired by the soldiers on the orders of young Asher. And despite looking pathetic with arrows in his back, Dell chuckles since for the first time he experienced silence. The kingdom was actually hunting him down and labeling him a monster with fire and wind power, which is why Asher dubbed him Kaleid after the evil incarnate. For the past few months of being captive, Asher has considered Kaleid useless. He does nothing but asks for his drugs, so they've tried to kill him many times, but no weapons can penetrate his body. One day, Asher made the wrong decision of not giving him his precious drugs, and as a result, he lost his arm to him. Fortunately, Kaleid did not kill Asher since he needed him to supply his medications, so he became the prince's tamed beast. Asher even ordered Kaleid to kill the former emperor, his own brother, so that Asher could take the throne. In return, the prince assured him he would track down the star fragment that, according to myth, would finally allow him to have eternal rest. In 14 years of working under Asher, they found nothing until he met Leyrin and instantly fell in love at first sight. Back to the present, Leyrin starts to become teary and expresses how she likes Dell as well. He smiles so sincerely now that his feelings are finally being reciprocated. But their joy is brief when they both have a vision of Dell with long hair at the Shea coast. At the same time, Bella feels Leylin's awakening her power? Leyrin then recalls it was the same location Dell requested as payment for their contract and learns that he actually has the same powers as the mythical Kaleid, and that, as a result, he tries to find the star fragment everywhere, including the Shea coast, in order to stop his suffering and noises in his head. But he stops looking for it after he met her, who makes everything peaceful for him. Now that she is aware of this, she believes it's the same reason he made Sophen his territory. But he eventually admits that Sophen is his gift to her and gets really afraid when he finds she did not like it. The misunderstanding has now been resolved. However, they wonder why they saw the same vision and plan to visit the coast when they go to Ephron for Sarah's and Hayden's marriage. That's when she remembers the present she bought for him. She innocently explains what it is and can't wait to use it to massage his face. However, the gift is like torture for our guy since the oil is actually meant to be used for first night together. Later that night, he goes for a walk to clear his head and puts his blood to the test on a bear. Unfortunately, despite his extended abstinence from the drugs, his blood is still deadly. He can't help but think of Leyrin, who's really driving him insane. Today, Dell prepares her meal again, and all this time she thought cooking was his specialty, but she is surprised to find out that Dell only learned to cook because she said so. Looking at his gorgeous face, she wants to massage it using the perfume oil, or so she thinks. But Dell declines and tries to distract her with food. Girl, if you only knew. Now in her office, she is discussing the inauguration preparations with Bella and likes how they will only invite the heads of every family, so even the small houses in the countryside can attend. Bella is certain that Leyrin will soon recall everything now that she can sense her reawakening. She should be excited, but instead she feels nervous. After Leyrin was reincarnated, or should we say, Buell, Bella and Purpla endlessly waited for her to awaken. Unlike Kaleid, who has no recollection of his past, they say Buell is special, so they are confident she will remember them when she grows up. But the fact that Purpla has reappeared and Buell is slowly reawakening is making Bella anxious. The inauguration ceremony has finally arrived, and the Sophen kingdom will be officially declared Kaleid's. And as she begins to prepare for the day, Leyrin can't help but feel nervous. Leyrin looks stunning in a bright yellow gown paired with a fancy-looking gem. Bella is smiling for the first time while talking about Del because it is he who arranged all of her magnificent outfits and jewels. She then recalls the rumors about Del preparing so many jewels for her, and out of curiosity, she investigates her dressing room, where she is startled to find different gowns and overflowing number of gems all for her. She stares at it blankly until the Duke, who is dressed elegantly all in black, with brushed-up hair, arrives holding a plate of desserts he prepared only for his wife. She wants to look upset, but our boy knows how to win her over with food. While Del adds a hair ornament to her, he simply explains that everything is a gift for his beloved wife, Leyrin, causing the latter to blush deeply. She's still debating whether it's good to accept everything, so in exchange, she wants to fill up his dress room as well, which Del refuses because she already gave him stuff. And by that, she pictures the perfume oil that is good for face massages, but he was referring to the allowance he received. He blushes after knowing she wanted to use the fragrance oil on his face, clearing another misunderstanding. All of the representatives of each house arrive in the castle, and some begin discussing Baron Synthase, who took Bernard's estate and, according to stories, held Marquess Bernard's daughter captive. After the Marquess's death, the Baron advises the daughter to marry him in order to retain the Bernard family name, even threatening to expose to the Empire the account book carrying evidence that her father forced her to sign a document handing over the Marquess estate to him and imprisoned her in her own home until she agreed to marry him. The new Grand Duke and Duchess enter the Grand Hall, and so the ceremony begins. Satella announces the Grand Duke's speech, but, well, Del doesn't really care, so we will skip that part and move on to Leylin's speech as the new Grand Duchess. After Del skips his speech, she is not mentally ready, and to be honest, she's unsure if she's suitable to be the Duchess simply because Del and she love each other. She thinks she can do it for a year, but then realizes how important her position is. She knows people are only trusting her simply because she's from Sophen, and so she understands that if she ignores her people right now and allows her fear to rule her, she could lose everything she had been working so hard to protect, which is her family and Ephron. She firmly introduces herself and says how the new Kaleid's kingdom would not be any different and would remain the place where everyone was born, promising to guide them to a better future, which touches everyone's heart. Following that, every family will now take an oath of loyalty to the new kingdom, and Baron Synthase will be the first to do so. As the Baron presents himself, Leyrin recognizes him as Marquess Bernard's servant, the domain where she discovers so much corruption. He only swears to the Duchess as if the Grand Duke didn't exist. And to make it worse, he refers to the new kingdom as Sophen rather than Kaleid. This causes a ruckus, and Leyrin comes over to confront him, but the Baron doesn't even flinch. Instead, he clicks his shoe, and the chandelier falls right on Kaleid. I'm not even worried, but this guy is really digging his own grave. Leylin's knees weaken, causing her to tumble, but she still runs towards Kaleid as the Baron refuses to stop talking and demands the title of Duke. As expected, the Duke appears unscratched while his wife cries in relief and makes sure he's okay. After that, Leyrin becomes enraged and begins to publicly proclaim the Baron's corruption and his illegal control of Bernard's family territory, to which he tries to deny. Well, not a problem. She can just ask the Marquess' daughter and investigate it. But after his attempted assassination, our smart girl never intends to just arrest him. She ensures everyone understands that if he does succeed, the Empire will find their land hostile and will slaughter everyone. As a result, his execution comes from the people who unanimously vote for the traitor's death, to show others not to do the same thing in the future. That means Del doesn't have to kill anyone. She gives the order to kill him right in front of everyone, while Del covers her eyes. Our girl is smart and a baddie. The next day, they thoroughly investigate the assassination, and thankfully, the Baron has no collaborators or anything that will spark an uprising. However, what worries Leyrin now is if the guy gets reincarnated and commits the same act. Leyrin gets surprised when Bella knows about reincarnation. This is the first time she finds a person who knows about this. Bella then goes on to explain that a normal person will not be able to remember their past life and will take 100 years to be reincarnated as a pure human again, which is not the case for Leyrin. That night, she keeps thinking about reincarnation and wants to ask Bella more about it, But her seriousness is cut short as a freshly showered Dell appears, making her red. After seeing how handsome her husband is, she unconsciously holds his face, making Dell press her to the bed to kiss her, but then quickly stops. He notices that his action is making Leyrin sad, so he shyly explains that he's waiting for the drug to completely flush out of his system before they can do whatever they want to do. She then finds out that Dell is using the bears to see whether the drug in his body is gone, making our overly imaginative young lady believe her husband is kissing the bears to check it out. He is so done with her weird ideas, like how she comes up with all these allegations. So he covers her mouth and explains that he makes the bear drink his blood. I can't with this girl, but cute. Now that he's finally told Leyrin about his problem, he starts kissing her anywhere besides her lips. However, this only frustrates our girl, so she stops her husband and promises to wait till the drugs in his body are gone, which only drives our guy insane because he would do it right now if he could. So he plans to leave for a while to go to the Empire to calm himself when suddenly, white fog appears before them. It looks like this is not something new to Dell, so he uses a blue gem and instantly the fog disappears. He wonders why Leyrin can see the fog too, and explains that they are the souls of dead people lingering around him, and the only thing that can make them vanish is the blue stone, which possesses earth and wind power. After learning of this, Leyrin can't help but compare him to the legend's Kaleid, and perhaps he is the evil's reincarnation. And since she keeps having dreams about him, she attempts to rearrange some mental puzzles and wonders whether they had a link in their previous incarnations. Meanwhile, Stand has actually gone to Ephron and is meeting with Leylin's father. He only visits his hometown for a short time before heading to Sophen, or the new Kaleid's kingdom, to complete some duty. But Leylin's father is concerned about him because he will certainly meet Leyrin there. Stan looks sad but reassures his uncle that his feelings are all in the past. Well, I hope so. Leylin's father is still surprised to see Stan as the Empire's Prime Minister, Arbella, while his own daughter has also become a Grand Duchess. After Stan leaves to rest, a blonde girl enters Leylin's father's office, crying and calling him daddy. He plans to tell Stan about the child, but not Leyrin. It looks like he wants to hide the child from her. Back in Leyrin and Dell's room, she tries to explain reincarnation to Dell, believing that his mysterious power is tied to his previous life, and that he may be the Kaleid of the legend. Dell is still unclear what she's talking about, and wonders where she learned it, until she finally admits that she is an example of reincarnation and has memories of her previous existence. She assumes Dell will not believe her, but after hearing her story, he realizes the reason she is so calm during the carriage incident is because she had already encountered death. Dell hugs his wife again while Leyrin snuggles up to him, telling him she doesn't care if he's the Kaleid or not, making him blush again. This time, he couldn't stand her cuteness, and so that night, he immediately left for the Imperial Palace. Leyrin had a restless night and felt tired the next day. She had become accustomed to having Dell share her bed, but with a rebellion brewing in the capital city, Kaleid's presence is now necessary. Girl, that's not it, but okay. Anyway, she uses this chance to ask Bella again about reincarnation, but instead of answering, Bella asks her whether she remembers her. She's still processing her question when suddenly, Katie enters her office to give her an important letter. She receives a letter from her parents who surprise her with a postscript saying that Grand Duke Stand, Arbella, is delivering this letter. She finally discovers that Stand, her cousin, is Arbella. Bella and Katie are startled to learn that Leyrin is unaware that the Emperor has given the noble name Arbella to Stand Ephron, her own cousin. Bella assumes Dell has already informed her, making Leyrin even more enraged knowing that her own husband tried to hide it from her. She's worried since this is the first time they'll see each other after their cancelled engagement. But as soon as she sees him, she sobs, missing her childhood cousin so much. She goes to hug him, but to her surprise, he stops her. He tells her to behave and address him respectfully. It's as if she's meeting an entirely different person. They are having tea, awkwardly. And when he doesn't say a word, she starts to get irritated and wonders why he's even visited her. She plans to leave to let him rest, when Stand can't take being mad at her for too long. So to ease the tension, he wants her to call him by his name, Stand. Now that the air is clear, she comments on how much he's changed and how she never imagined he'd rise to the position of Prime Minister. Well, it was all thanks to her. Stand is a genius for inventing things that benefit the entire empire based on the story she told him in the past. The cigar Kaleid is using, for example, was inspired by her. When they were young, she used to stick a rolled paper on her mouth to scare the children. Just thinking about it makes her really embarrassed. Our poor boy has never forgotten the time they spent together, and even if it's too late, he doesn't want to give up yet, which is why he's here to propose. He's talking nonsense. Our girl is already married. But the reason he's acting like this is because he knows about her contractual marriage. He's happy to know that she only got married to protect Ephron. And considering Del is a killer, he thinks he's a better option. However, he is surprised when Leyrin keeps defending her husband from him, showing how much she loves Del. His anger escalates after learning that she really has no interest in marrying him, in spite of his efforts over the past 6 years. Leyrin thought Stand had already moved on, so unlike the last time when she ran away, this time she wants to give him closure. She listens as he tells her how badly she crushed his heart, and she quickly apologizes for it. He can only sigh. The truth is, he already sensed that she doesn't regard him as a man, but he's having trouble accepting it. Well, I hope he'll really move on now. However, he still can't believe she loves Kaleid, and he warns her not to fall deeply because the poison is still in his system. She then blushingly asks him for an antidote because, our girl is not fine, making Stand look at her with disgust. Meanwhile, Del arrives at the palace and instantly begins to occupy himself in order to distract himself from Leyrin. Asher lets him be and is glad to finally take a rest. The Emperor goes to bed when he sees the report from the 9 Knights regarding Grand Duke Kaleid's activities and discovers that the Duke frequently goes to the forest at night to perform experiments on bears and evaluate their reaction to his blood. The Emperor has caught on and laughs, knowing Kaleid wants to be intimate with his wife but cannot. He realizes there's no reason for him to be jealous of his married friend. Then he remembers Purcell. He met her when he was 13. She was brought to be his brother's concubine, crown prince and heir. Since his brother knew he loved her, he sent her to his pavilion. Since then, he has waited to marry Purcell as an adult. However, while Asher was away, Purcell was secretly transported as his brother's concubine after he became emperor. He held on to her, and when he saw her tears, he understood she didn't want to be the emperor's concubine. After that, he rebelled with Kaleid's help, taking the kingdom and killing everyone in his way. All of the paperwork that seems to never end is keeping Leyrin busy in her office. She hears from Katie that Del has already dealt with the rebellion, and so she can't wait for him to return. Just then, Stan wishes to see her again without notice, so Bella insists on talking to him herself. While the two start to exchange blows, Leyrin sees that Stan's fighting attitude is the same as hers when they were kids. She then fakes a cry for raising him wrong, and when they're finally alone, Stan holds her seriously to ask if she still sees him as a child. He does look more manly now, but he looks exactly like her father, so she can't let her wild imagination roam around him, and she apologizes. He accepts her apology, knowing she will reject him again. He does want to let go, but he is still unsure how. Poor guy. They are now having tea, and Stan starts to get into business. The real reason he has visited is to make a request, to evacuate the people of the central region, including the Darour and Bernard territories, because there will be a recurring cyclone in the area. This is the same cyclone that destroyed a whole kingdom before. It is so strong that it can wipe out everything on the land before changing its course. Not long ago, a cyclone appeared near Sophen, but it was not publicized because there are few residents in the area, so the damage was little. She couldn't sleep that night, worrying about the calamity coming to their place. She had heard Stan try to persuade Sophen to evacuate before, but after they declined, the Empire had no choice but to absorb the country. Now that she thinks about it, the war may have begun with the aim of saving people, but she wonders how the Emperor predicted the cyclones and thinks he can see the future. In her nightmares, someone tells Buell to open her eyes, and when she does, she sees herself by the sea. She notices her bag beside her, and then she remembers that she died. A woman appears and expresses her delight at finally being able to meet her. She introduces herself as Arbella, and she points to where a man is standing and tells her that only she can make Kaleid rest in peace. She wakes up thinking about her dream, which seems to be real, and the Kaleid in her dreams looks like her dear Del. That morning, she decides to go to the library to read more about the myth of Kaleid, in the hopes of finding answers to her problems. Then Bella enters the room and asks her why she's so interested in Kaleid in the myth. And this is when she explains that Kaleid is not the manifestation of evil as they claim, but rather a creature created by the gods and goddesses, specifically Kaleid and herself. She then asks the Grand Duchess if she truly forgot about her. Bella doubts Leyrin will remember her, but when she mentions hearing a girl named Arbella in her dream and wondering if it is her, Bella's eyes well up with tears. She finally introduces herself as Arbella, the god who called her into this world. She explains that the original owner of her body is Janet Dareor, a very pitiful young lady. Her mother is a fragile duchess, and shortly after they decided to adopt a son, Janet was born unexpectedly, costing her mother's life. Her jealous brother had been abusive, while her father had kept silent as he blames her for his wife's death. Her desperation led her to make a bargain with Arbella, whom she paid to kill her brother in exchange for her own body. Bella happily adds that she needs a body because she really wants to talk to Leyrin in person. But the other reason is Kaleid. After he possesses both Kaleid and Jed's power, absorbing Purpla causes him to hear all the sounds of the world. And since he still has a human body, once he absorbs her as well, she can't imagine what will happen to the world. So she's waiting for Leyrin, the star fragment, to fully awaken. But she did not reveal anything other than that. The next day, she finally finds her answer, that Del is really the reincarnation of the legend. She can't help but fangirl over the idea that her husband is like a demigod. Her joy, however, is brief, once she realizes the star fragment is supposed to provide Kaleid with eternal rest. Meanwhile, her husband is still hanging around the Emperor, not wanting to go home to suppress his desire for her, when suddenly, he hears Leyrin calling him. Del rushes away after hearing his wife's anxious voice. And now that the uprising has been put down and Del is left, Asher's eyes light up with the joy of knowing that he can finally take a business trip with Purcell. That night, Leyrin is analyzing the new information she has received. But after Bella confesses her true identity and learns that she is the star fragment, Bella avoids talking about it. She still needs to know if her being the star fragment will end Del's life until she recalls the Shea Coast she keeps seeing in her dreams, and believes it will provide her with answers, so she plans to visit the spot in Ephron. The following day, she uses Sarah's wedding as an excuse to have Stand look after the kingdom while she pays a visit to Ephron. After hearing that she wants to leave while Del is away, Stand assumes there is something going on between the couple and begins to hope that he may still have a chance with her. Boy, move on! So he agrees to manage the Kaleid kingdom while she's gone. Stand looks at Bella as she escorts them to lunch, thinking that if she had agreed to sell the Dareor land to him 2 years ago, Sophen would not have been destroyed and Leyrin would not have married Kaleid. He assumes she intended to protect the Dareor family all along, but now that she's abandoned her title and begun to hang around Leyrin, he's furious. Leyrin is now unable to eat in peace because the two continue to bicker, making her miss Del more. It's not always the case that Bella hates Stand. In fact, she likes him and thinks he's adorable when she's still in her spirit form and looking out for the young Leyrin. When they finally meet after so long, she finds herself feeling differently about him. Her heart races every time they meet for negotiations, but she knows Stan's eyes never leave Leyrin. He tried to persuade her to marry other guys one day, which angered her, and she strongly rejected it. After that, because of the previous body and Janet's hatred of men, she never looked at Stand in the same way again. Oh, I might start to ship the two. Back to the present, Purpla appears again before Bella, informing her that the seed of wind he planted is starting to sprout. And then he asks where she hides her heart, her power. Of course, Bella did not tell Purpla its location, which he already expected, but he plans to look for it in the Dareor territory and then leaves. That same night, an assassin tries to kill Stand when Del enters his room through the window. Del lets the assassin live so they can get information about him, as suggested by Stand. Del knows Stand's visit to his kingdom to warn them about the cyclones is only an excuse, so he warns him instead to move on from his wife. Stand refuses to give up and goes so far as to intentionally hurt the couple's relationship by telling Del that Leyrin is leaving for Ephron, particularly while he's still away. Leyrin wakes up from her sleep after hearing someone using her bathroom. She musters all her courage to see who's behind the door and is blessed to see Del freshly bathed with only a towel on his head. Some might get flustered, but not our girl. She gladly accepts the blessing and says, "Hallelujah!" LOL. Del is now clothed and our girl has calmed down. She learns that Del has returned quickly after hearing her trembling voice, and she suspects that they may have some kind of telepathy since they are connected. He soon gives her a tight hug, expressing his longing. But when he begins kissing her, Leyrin pushes him away, afraid that she might hurt Del. She gets serious and tells him she will go to Ephron alone since they can't leave both positions vacant. Del clenches his hand, recalling what Stan told him and fearing Leyrin will not return to him. But our girl promises to return after the wedding, and Del trusts her, so he lets her go, despite the sadness on his face. Bella informs Leyrin that she has completed her preparations for her trip and requests permission to visit Darior as well to check on Purpla. So far as Leyrin recalls, Purpla should not be able to use his powers after being sealed. But it appears that after Kaleid was reincarnated, a part of Purpla was separated and is now seeking vengeance. Bella assures her that Purpla would still lose to Kaleid, but the problem now is the Seed of the Wind. It possesses a massive amount of nature's power, and this is the disaster everyone calls the Cyclone. This is the same cyclone that Stan has been warning her about, but he has never revealed how they predicted it. And after Leyrin leaves, Del quickly changes his aura and asks for Bella. They forgot Del has excellent hearing and has actually heard from her and Leyrin that she is actually the earth god Arbella and he is Kaleid, the vessel to seal up the gods. Del could kill her now, but she explains that her body only has half of its power and has hidden the other half while she waits for the star fragment to awaken. They get cut short when Stan sees them and tries to stop Del using the name of his wife, making him let go. Bella blushes after receiving help from Stan, but then acts like she hates it, and the two start to bicker again. Stan notices how she hates to call him Arbella and explains that it was the Emperor who gave it to him, so he's just forced to use it. Whoops, wrong move. This has just made the real owner of the name angrier. Throw dirt on his face and walk away. While this is happening, Del has already concluded that if he indeed is Kaleid, then the star fragment is no other than Leyrin. Since Stan is no longer needed to oversee Kaleid's kingdom, he is planning to return to the Empire but is taken aback when Del instructs him to stay. What surprises him even more is learning Bella's true identity. Leyrin is spending the night in a lodge before returning to her hometown when she spots Katie delivering her a present from Del. She gets Del's first baked cookies and a letter that makes her so gushy she has to squeeze her pillow, unaware that her husband is already outside. I need my own Del too. Katie enters her room again, holding another gift with a letter, saying that she can use it during the night. And you know our girl is not so innocent, so she blushes after reading it. LOL. She hesitates, but when she opens it, she finds Del's pillow, making her miss him so much. After she falls asleep, Del enters her room, and just by touching her face, he instantly feels silence. No doubt, she's the star fragment. When Stan finds out that Bella is going to Darior, he goes to see her to apologize. He explains that he is simply annoyed by the name because the Emperor gave it to him as a joke in order to make him and Kaleid look like a pair. Bella also confirms that she is really Arbella, the god, and reveals that she has known him for a long time, but an immediate report comes in and stops their conversation. Meanwhile, Del returns from checking on his wife the night before, just in time for Stan to enter his office and inform him that the Emperor is missing. Well, Stan rephrased it and says the Emperor has escaped, LOL. As a result, he can no longer help Del and must return to the palace since it should never be left empty. Now that Del's plan to leave his kingdom to Stan for a day to see his wife can't happen, it's making him more and more frustrated. Bella has also entered his office to report her leave to Darior and honestly state her purpose, which is to take the other half of her power somewhere safe. Del is not someone who will trust her plans, but when she explains she's willing to be killed by him after the fragment of the star wakes up, he lets her go. After that, Stan offers to take Bella for a ride in his carriage to continue their talk. Leyrin has finally arrived in Ephron, where her parents welcome her home. And she is surprised to find out Sarah and Hayden are already expecting a baby. She can't help but be envious because her own love life is so chaotic. That night, her mother's wish of finally having a chat with her daughter came true. But Leyrin is still not used to hearing her own mother address her with honorifics. She then finds that the wedding is due to take place in 2 days since Seda can't delay it anymore as she's bearing a child, while her mother can't really hide her joy waiting to have her own grandchildren. Well, our guy is lavishing her with care and food, but that will not happen anytime soon. The next day, Leyrin is walking around the garden when she notices a child with golden hair. She chooses to approach the child and gets confused when it uses honorifics that men use. She scans the child and her features match those of the Sophen family. She has her doubts, but her father confirms that the child is indeed Prince Janot of Sophen, which is really bad news. After her father was released from prison thanks to Leyrin paying the ransom, he's the only one who can attend to the young prince. He knew all along that Stand would become prime minister and expected him to take over Sophen so they could give the young prince his rightful place. But of course, that did not happen, and it's now Kaleid's kingdom. If Leyrin is not his daughter, he could be punished for treason. So her father plans to adopt the prince and use a dead child's name to conceal his identity. Leyrin thinks this could be their only solution, so no one will use the prince for rebellion. Her father also heard from Sir Hayden about her contract with the Nige Night Guild and wishes her to adopt the prince herself after her divorce, which she quickly refuses. "Sir, there will be no divorce." She then meets the prince with his, pink-colored room with a huge cat-stuffed toy. Leyrin feels her mother has overdone the disguise and plans to make the prince's room more manly. But to her surprise, the prince refuses and actually loves his room. Meanwhile, Bella and Stand are finally catching up. Stand finds out that before Arbella possessed her body now, she had seen him grow up with Leyrin, and the reason she can't give up the land of Dereor is because that is where she buried her heart, the other half of her. Plus, he really irritated her before. She just can't understand her feelings for him, but we know. Now that they have resolved their lingering hatred for each other, Bella finally admits she's happy to meet him, making our guy blush. Yay! The ship is sailing. The prince feels she doesn't want him to stay, then remembers that when Sophen was attacked, Rince, a servant his own age, changed clothes with him and died in his place. Leyrin realizes the agony the prince must have suffered witnessing all of his loved ones die, and she now understands that her father must have seen the situation from a humane position and was unable to turn a blind eye. But she is concerned about her husband's reaction. Meanwhile, Del is still busy at work creating his jewel palace, which he intends to give to his wife, and with the help of Bella, he now has a large supply of the jewels required. Then, he informs Satella that he'll be leaving for Ephron since he has finished all the paperwork. Our guy is more responsible than I thought. Inside her room, Leyrin is still holding Kaleid's pillow when he walks in through her window. He really misses her so much, but when things start to heat up, she yells to make him stop. Sir Hayden rushes to her room at the sound of her scream, but after witnessing the steamy scene between the two, he retreats and reports to Leylin's father that there is no intruder, but rather the Grand Duke is with his daughter. That did not bother Del at all, and he is ready to continue, but this time, Leyrin starts to get angry, but then decides to kiss Del on the cheeks anyway. Now that Del has calmed down, he assures her that she can adopt the prince as her successor under the name Janot Kaleid. She wonders how he found out about it, and he explains that he overheard her discussing it as he tried to look for her. However, she is still baffled by his apparent willingness to casually give up his land, and he even adds that she can even change it to Ephron's kingdom if she wants. He doesn't really need anything else other than her, but she has doubts, wondering if there would be any issues if she sticks by his side. After that, Kaleid formally meets Leylin's parents and the child they are meant to adopt. But seeing him makes the child shiver, because he knows he's the one who destroyed his country. When Kaleid offers the food for her to try, she accepts it to show that they're a happy couple, hoping that the child will feel better seeing them. Leyrin is relieved that the child's life is now safe because her husband has agreed to adopt him. And all that's left for her to do is check the coast, as she wants to find out for herself what the secret awaits for her. That night, she waited for her husband to fall asleep, and when she got the chance, she slowly moved to prepare to go to the Seer's coast. But as expected, no one escapes Kaleid's hearing, so he offers to join her. Inside the carriage, Kaleid knows she's heading to the sea coast and explains that he knows everything through Bella, that the two of them are the reincarnation of the legend. Del doesn't care about their past and just wants her to stay forever with him. But the notion of killing him when they become one makes her nervous. Del simply grins, telling her that he doesn't mind dying that way. Such a flirt! And off they walk to Turtle Hill. When they arrive at the location, they can sense that something is buried in the land, but they don't know where, and because it was a scene from their previous life, it means that at least 26 years have gone by. She feels hopeless, but still wants to dig the place, when Del's heart suddenly hurts, as if it's a warning not to go further. Leyrin sees he's in pain, while Del quickly hugs her, telling her they should give up on digging the place. She insists on knowing if she actually murdered him in their previous lives, but our guy is certain that's not the case. She agrees to go home, but she ends up convincing him to have the guild dig up the location. Next morning, Leylin's father asks her about her husband's feelings about the prince's adoption, which she totally forgot to discuss it since she's been thinking about the Seer's Coast. She decides to display to her father the other side of her husband, so she casually calls Del, and he walks in through the window not a second late. This is to show her father Del's amazing hearing, and what makes him more surprised is that Del already knows about Prince Janat before Leyrin can tell him. They then discuss the prince's adoption, and her father reveals that other than his desire to return the Sophen kingdom to the prince, he wants the prince to be her heir to protect her. If in the future something happens to Del, the Grand Duke, Prince Janat will give her protection from both the Empire and the old Sophen nobles. Leyrin wants her father to give the young prince enough education to rule at least Ephron first, and they will consider adopting him. Though it is still up to the prince whether or not to take Sophen, the three decide to wait and watch him grow. Meanwhile, Bella and Stand are now in the area, but he cannot stop fearing for her safety, so he insists on following her. Then, she proceeds to dig her heart out of the dirt, and her delight is interrupted by Purpla, who snatches it right away from her and warns her that he will kill Kaleid and make Buell his. Bella then collapses in disbelief as he vanishes. Okay, she actually didn't see that coming? The wedding has arrived, and Seda praises her for the one-of-a-kind wedding gift she gave. Leyrin has no idea what she's talking about, and she eventually finds out that the perfume oil is not intended for massage. Leyrin is moved to tears as she watches Sir Hayden and Seda exchange vows, while Kaleid watches silently. When the newlyweds prepare to leave for their vacation, everyone gathers to say goodbye, and Seda expresses how grateful she is that her childhood friend, the Grand Duchess, attended. They also headed for the castle, leaving regrets behind while they still want to make more memories in her birthplace, but their obligations are waiting for them. Inside the carriage, she thinks her mother has misconstrued her, so she gives her charms. She merely sighs. If they only know how she hopes to enjoy a passionate night with her husband. Secretly, she is shouting that she hasn't even opened the bottle of perfume oil. Kaleid asks her to arrange a wedding because he wants to see her in a wedding dress and exchange rings just like he saw at the wedding, which she happily accepts. She feels enthusiastic, thinking that if they have a wedding a month later, maybe by that time they may finally, Her husband notices her cheerful expression while dreaming about that big event and tells her she's incredibly sly. However, Del worries that it might take more time than a month for the drugs to flush out, and worse, maybe his own existence is dangerous. And as if she hadn't heard anything, she tries to kiss her husband, but gets turned down. Even after returning to their castle, Leyrin continues to carry out her surprise kiss attacks, and as much as Del wants to, he's in defense mode around her. Cuties. Stan witnessed how much it hurt Bella after Purpla took her power, crying as if she had lost all hope, and he wants to figure out the deep reason behind her misery before returning to the Empire. She opens up, saying she's worried that Purpla will defeat Kaleid and prevent her from achieving her dream of being absorbed by Kaleid, staying inside him and being loved by Leyrin through him. But he opposes her, and just as she softens Stan's heart, he offers her the sincere advice that she too is worthy of love. She likes him without her knowing it, so hearing this causes her to break down in tears, and she impulsively kisses Stan since the idea of falling in love and being loved has never occurred to her. She has simply devoted her life to making Leyrin happy, but his words crack all of her senses, making her really bold to ask him to spend the night with her. Like, really bold. The missing emperor is actually in their kingdom, and Leyrin has no choice but to have tea with him. However, his childish behavior really annoys her, while Asher can only laugh at how frank she is, so different from the others, just like her husband. The atmosphere shifts when he begins to share that the Cyclone's appearances were caused by Del. Well, we all know Purpla is responsible for this. But what's new to her is that Del is to blame for the famous fire incident that destroyed the entire kingdom in the southwest. And this emperor is forgetting he's talking to the guy's wife. He continues to share how he captured Del for fun, how he used different ways to kill him, how he lost his arm, and how they experimented with different drugs for him. Leyrin is tired of hearing him talk about Del like he's an object, so she starts lecturing him for forcing her delicate and naive husband to carry out the dirty work for him. Asher seems confused, as if she's describing a different person, when she adds that Del is very tender-hearted. He's only that to you, girl. She doesn't stop teaching Asher a lesson until Del appears behind her and they start getting all lovey-dovey in front of the love-deprived emperor. After seeing the two, Asher's suspicion that maybe the star fragment is not a gem or anything but a person. Leyrin. Purcell interrupts their tea time to take the emperor back to his room, and Leyrin observes a change in his demeanor after being scolded by her. That night, Del surprises Leyrin with a golden marble he made out of wind power, making her as delighted as if he had actually plucked a star for her. They then talk about how rude the emperor is, but Del tries to make her understand that from Asher's perspective, he is nothing but an evil who burned down an entire kingdom. She then finds out that most people in the land have black hair, which is now rare because of what he did. Now that she thinks about it, both Jed and Purpla tried to resist being absorbed by him, so the fire must have been caused by Jed and not by him. She is also mad how the emperor blames him for the cyclone, but again, Del thinks that's not the case. The former emperor was the one who predicted the location of the cyclones, but no one knows how he did it. He's also the first one to tell Del to stop it. So if Del is the source, they could have just tried to get rid of him. The following day, the emperor still has no intention of returning home, but Purcell's tolerance for his immature behavior has worn thin as she desperately wants to return to the empire. As they continue to fight, Leyrin comes at an awkward time, forcing the emperor to use her to stop Purcell from leaving. Now that the two women are alone, Leyrin wants to know why Purcell is in such a hurry to go home, and it turns out that Purcell is already a mother of a 13-year-old girl. Leyrin has no idea because she isn't interested in capital gossip, but Purcell is gracious enough to spill her story. She is a princess of the ruined Roytan kingdom, sent as a tribute to the empire, and her daughter is the emperor's niece. Can't wait for more tea. She was just 13 years old when she arrived in the kingdom and was supposed to marry Asher when she reached marriageable age. However, the former emperor, Asher's brother, abruptly changed his mind and took her as his concubine, and her daughter is the result while Asher rebelled. Purcell used to like Asher, but she can't look past the amount of blood he spilled for her and just wants to live somewhere peaceful with her daughter. Meanwhile, Asher hears everything from the outside, and all the while, he believes that now he has the power to protect her, she will be happy. Even after she gave birth, Asher was willing to take her as his empress, but she despised the throne so much that she would rather die than take it. He did not force her, but then kept her forever by his side. I don't know, but it feels like an obsession to me. Leyrin, while they are talking, realizes that her tea has an unusual flavor, but she ignores it. She then invites Purcell to stay in Kaleid's kingdom, as they are also in need of employees, and she is willing to grant her a new identity if she so desires. However, before Purcell can respond, the eavesdropper storms in and falls on his knees, pleading with her not to leave his side. Purcell leaves in frustration, followed by Asher, who did not forget to warn Leyrin not to instill weird ideas to his lady. Bella enters the room to proclaim her arrival after the two have left, and she soon detects that the tea Leyrin has been drinking contains drugs, exactly like Del uses. Clearly, someone tried to poison Leyrin, but other than that, guys, we should celebrate. This couple did not know that since she's the star fragment, the drugs are not harmful for her. Ugh, all this time! Our girl almost died from overheating just by imagining endless possibilities with Del. She is now eating with Del, and when she tries to kiss him, he uses food as a defense to keep her lips away from his. Then he quickly leaves. He already knows about the drugs, but he is so enraged that he wishes to kill those who attempted to murder his wife first. An hour ago, Bella reported back to him that Purpla took her other half, and she believes he will use it for the Seed of Wind. But more importantly, she reported the tea incident earlier and has already conducted an investigation. She is surprised that even Del doesn't know that the drugs won't hurt Leyrin. And there's more good news. The star fragment won't kill him, just as the legend says. It will give him eternal rest. A literal rest, not death. I'm not sure what to feel, but they could have just asked Bella all along. Purcell and the Emperor are now having a serious discussion until she exclaims that she is accountable for all the people he killed and that he should start acting like an emperor. Asher shed a tear, regretting taking the post and wishing he had run away with her before. He decides to return home when suddenly, a mad Dell enters his room, suspecting them of poisoning Leyrin. Bella also comes in to report that the maid who served the tea has already killed herself, and they still don't know how the maid got the drugs, so he warns Asher not to go until they find out the truth. Meanwhile, our girl is unconcerned about the poisoning and is looking forward to her first night with Dell, who is now sound asleep. She goes to his side to give him a peck anyway, but Dell is actually awake, so he gives her a proper kiss. Finally! The agony is over. He still feels bad for not being able to protect her during the tea incident, but boy, she's more thankful since now they know that they can finally do whatever they want. However, our guy is so protective of Leyrin that he doesn't want her to carry their child yet because he believes she's too fragile. So they did nothing but kiss. After Leyrin falls asleep, Dell goes out to catch the criminal. The next day, Katie reports that the real culprit was a spy within the 9 Knights, and her husband has already taken care of the problem and burned everything the spy has. They tried to use her to incite a conflict between Kaleid and the Emperor so they could take the assets of whichever side lost. This is also why they tried to assassinate Stand before. And speaking of the Emperor, he immediately left after receiving the news. He's only afraid Purcell will stay behind. LOL. Dell hasn't had to deal with spies in a long time, and she's scared this will rile up the public again until she comes up with a brilliant idea. She tells Katie, while not urgently, to send the sculptors and artists, perhaps to have them create a novel on Kaleid. After a while, Dell arrives with desserts to feed his wife, but Leyrin tries to refuse since she's on a diet. She shoves the cake into his mouth, but he really wants her to have a piece of it, so instead of using a spoon, he lets her taste the cake with a kiss. Brilliance! She finishes the cake thanks to his method, just in time for Satella to report that the excavation on the Turtle Hills is finished, and they discover a box. Leyrin feels uneasy after seeing it and finds a tote bag inside, exactly the same bag she was holding during her accident. She finds her treasured umbrella in the bag, and memories flood back to her. She remembers now that Arbella didn't just call her soul in this realm, but her real past self. She was looking for a pure star soul to help Kaleid when she found her dying. Arbella transports Buell barely intact just before her soul departs from her body, which is why she has no sensation and her heart does not beat. Buell learns that she's the only one who can save Kaleid from suffering the side effects of absorbing the gods. It bothered her at first, but when she saw Kaleid's beauty, her worries disappeared. Girl is just at a different time, but still has the same reaction. Since Kaleid can't talk, she has no way of learning his real name. And so when she scanned her bag, she found a Delisa chocolate to share with him. His smile is so genuine that Buell named him after the chocolate he ate. Time passed, but the shock she felt from dying is still there. Thanks to Dell, she started to accept her reality, and soon after that, even though they couldn't really talk to each other, they became close. If only her heart were still beating, she'd know this is what they call love. She finds it funny that her first date happened after death, and she treasured every moment with him. But that joy was short-lived when she felt her body melting one day. It was raining, and she desperately tried to reach Dell, but failed as her soul began to separate from her body. When Dell found her, it was too late, and for the first time, he used his voice to call out to her, begging her to wake up. She was in her spirit form and couldn't do anything to comfort him when Arbella appeared. Because he still can't control the powers within him, it looked like he unconsciously pushed the earth power that is maintaining Buell's body. Fortunately, Arbella can still hear Buell's voice, and as she requested, she made sure Dell knew it wasn't his fault. Buell sobbed as she realized she would never be able to touch or speak to him again. But Arbella offered her a solution: reincarnate in order for her to have a new body. That same day, Dell buried her belongings with her in the Turtle Hills. She was not scared of dying again, but she was concerned about leaving Dell to suffer alone. Buell insisted on staying longer, but Arbella knew they shouldn't postpone the reincarnation. So Arbella had no choice but to inform Dell of this, and that he should let go of her, or he could go through reincarnation as well, aka kill himself. Dell doesn't believe Arbella's claims and begins strangling her, thinking that killing her and gaining her powers will allow him to talk to Buell. But he soon lets go when Arbella explains that he couldn't even manage Purple's power, so controlling her earth power would be impossible. Arbella then reminds Buell to reincarnate immediately while the power in her is still intact, or else it will be too late to save both Dell and their world, prompting Buell to realize that delaying will cause more pain to Dell. So she finally decides to leave him and reincarnate. But reincarnation has been proving unsuccessful for Buell, likely because of her inner fear of leaving Dell. So Dell chooses to stab himself in order to reincarnate first, relieving her of that burden and promising to find Buell in their next life. Aww, they reincarnated for each other. After Leyrin recalls everything, she rushes to give her confused husband a tight hug while crying, relieved that they have found each other in this life. On the other hand, Bella sensed Leylin's reawakening, which implies Dell will have complete control over the god power and can absorb her as well. Just then, the thought of Stan's face crosses her mind as she has sudden nausea, leading her to question whether she might be pregnant as a result of their night together. Girl just wanted to get her heart back, but came back with something else, while our married leads here are struggling to even have a kiss. When Leyrin reveals that her long-lost memories are returning, our guy becomes worried and jealous that she is reliving her past with another man, who is, by the way, actually him. However, since he can't recall anything, he begins kissing her to establish that she is his. Leyrin, being Leyrin, isn't complaining and even offers to go to the, bedroom. But that only makes Dell step away, fearful of causing pain to his precious wife, so they ended kissing for I don't want to imagine how long. Anyway, Leyrin is now in her office when a frightened Bella enters, believing that Leyrin will resent her for driving Kaleid to end his life. But she instantly hugs Leyrin after she assures her that she is not blaming anyone and that it is her own fault for stalling to reincarnate in the first place. They then talk about why she lost her memories, and Bella speculates that Ley did it to force herself to reincarnate, which makes Leyrin concerned that she may lose her cherished memories again when she reincarnates and dies. But it appears she need not fear death. Bella bestowed upon her an abundance of divine protection, turning her immortal. Dell then appears to separate the two, and Leyrin is surprised to learn that Purpla has taken Bella's heart, and that the quickest way to regain it is for her to be absorbed by Kaleid, which Leyrin does not want to do. Because Purpla is after Dell, he will undoubtedly find him, so he assures Leyrin that he will get Bella's heart when the time comes. But that only makes Leyrin more worried. Kolda, the water god, has healing powers, therefore Dell should be well since he absorbed her. But the two ladies are surprised when Dell claims he doesn't have Kolda within him or any water powers. Although Bella has no idea where Kolda is, she is sure she is close to Leyrin. Meanwhile, Purcell has returned home, only to be greeted by Purpla in Mint's, her daughter's body. 14 years ago, before Asher leaves for a 3-month mission, he proposes to Purcell and gives her a wedding ring, hoping she'll wear it on the day he returns, which Purcell blushingly accepts. However, despite Purcell's happiness at the proposal, she is hesitant to accept it because Asher has no desire for power, which would disrupt her plan to get revenge on the Gaishi kingdom for ruining her kingdom. And this is where Asher's brother, the former emperor, enters the picture. During their tea time, Purcell feels compelled to tell him her real name, Flamentha, because she is frightened by the powerful aura he exudes. In response, he reveals himself as Purpla, controlling the emperor's body. He then approaches her and proposes a deal. She must give him her first child for him to possess, and in exchange, he will grant Purcell one wish, even if it means destroying the entire Gaishi kingdom, which makes her consider it. Purpla continues to see her after that, and she discovers that he despises Dell, which is why he needs a body he can own. Her hatred toward the Gaishi kingdom is strong, especially now that they were flourishing under the protection of the Empire. But she is hesitant because she imagines how it would break Asher's heart to offer their first child to a god for her own revenge. Then, out of nowhere, the enraged emperor, now in control of his own body, enters Purcell's room, knowing full well of Purpla's offer to her. But he can't wait for Asher to come back home to have the two bear a child. So in his desperate desire to end his misery, he brutally assaulted poor Purcell and made her have a child with him instead. He must have gone insane when Purpla pulled him into his evil scheme, but this cannot be accepted. After Purpla wakes up in the Emperor's body, it's too late. Purcell had already died that day, so this time she accepts Purpla's deal without hesitation. The god destroyed Gaishi, and he is now back to remind Purcell's half of the bargain. However, it appears that Purcell has grown to love her daughter and begs Purpla to use her body as a vessel instead, which he agrees to. She may have disliked everything, but Mint was also the reason she continued to carry on. So with one last hug to Mint's body, she prays Mint will survive even without her. This is just too sad. The author better have a happy ending for our girl. Meanwhile, in Kaleid's kingdom, Leyrin is set to visit their Knights Captain's manor to provide divine protection to his wife, who has just given birth as part of their tradition. As soon as she arrives, she is greeted by the haggard-looking Sir Stolz, and she is surprised to find out that his wife is also not in good shape. They talk for a while, and the wife discloses the horrible reality of birthing, saying that it is so dangerous that she may not do it again, to which Ley can agree given that her own father did not seek another heir besides her to protect her mother. However, the strain on Mrs. Stolz's face fades as soon as Leyrin touches her hand. Ley is unaware, but Kolda appears to be in her? Back in the kingdom, Del is busy asking Bella about Fusticia, and is relieved that the herb has potent contraceptive effects, as he doesn't want his delicate wife to suffer carrying their child. And then he goes to check on the palace he's constructing for Leylin's birthday. He is so protective, and I love it. Sir Stolz thanks Leyrin before she leaves and shares that his wife has postpartum depression, but that Leyrin has helped her smile again. Then they hear the baby sobbing, so Sir Stolz attempts to sway his cute sweet potato, but it doesn't work. So our girl gives it a try, and the baby stops crying like a miracle. No, can't wait to see Ley's own babies. Even now that they've returned to the kingdom, Ley can't stop talking about the baby and begins fantasizing about her own children, which is an awkward topic for Bella, so she hastily hands Ley some documents and leaves. Ley examines the document and notices that it is about herbs, so she immediately assumes Del has a problem down there and blames Bella and Kolda for not providing him with reproductive abilities. Aside from her love life, arranging the title conferment ceremony for their officials comes first because it will be included in her birthday banquet. Our girl is having a headache since, as a result of forming a department full of brilliant individuals, pre-existing officials began to be pushed out. Just then, the Emperor disguised as a servant appears and they start to bicker when suddenly they sense an angry Del from the palace's window. Ley tries to calm Del down, so she gives him a flying kiss, and my man is immediately charmed and is about to jump out of the window to get her. He thankfully listens when Ley asks him to stay put. So she and Asher may finish their conversation regarding the conferment, and she becomes amazed when Asher grants her permission to bestow titles on her people herself. It is actually the responsibility of Empire royals to give titles, but Del and Stand are exceptions, thus Ley has one less problem. The Emperor has also confirmed his suspicions that Leyrin is the star fragment they've been searching for, but he isn't surprised to learn that Ley isn't supposed to kill Del, and can merely give him serenity, given how lovey-dovey they are. They then discuss the cyclones, and Ley discovers that Asher's elder brother warned him that his body is possessed by Purpla, and pleaded with him to remember whatever his controlled body said, including the location of the cyclones. So the reason Asher began a series of invasions, uniting the entire continent, was actually to prevent large deaths from anticipated cyclones and to find the fragment of star in the hope that it could stop the god of wind. Later that night, Leyrin spills the beans to Del, who had no idea that Purpla controlled over the previous emperor, which makes our girl suddenly realize that she shouldn't be telling all this because Del could have just listened to them thanks to his hearing powers. However, it appears that when Ley remembered her past, the noises Del is hearing are gradually becoming duller. And to celebrate, Del feeds his wife with his freshly made chocolate that is in his mouth, which Ley gladly accepts. So much sweetness, I think I need water. For our main leads, the night is going great, but for Stand and Bella, things are not going quite as well. Stand had been writing letters to Bella, but she's avoiding him considering that she plans to be absorbed by Del and give him the rest of her powers when Purpla goes crazy and begins to use the power he stole. This is to ensure Del's victory over Purpla, but the thought of having to die and leave Stand and their unborn child breaks her heart. Girl, when Ley finds out you're preggy, there's no way she will allow you to do whatever you're planning. The following morning, Ley is mortified after receiving her order, which is sexy lingerie that is supposed to be a customized swimsuit. Who knew this naughty girl would be so embarrassed? So before the Madame Harriena departs, Ley insists that she remake another swimsuit according to her specific instructions. After that, Bella enters Ley's office, while Leyland is still bitter over the fact that she and Dell accomplished little more than kissing the other night. She is convinced that something is wrong, and in her frustration, she finally asks Bella, the god who created her husband, why she removed Dell's ability in bed. This surprises Bella because she figured these two had already done the deed. So she explains that Dell has the ability and is just making sure Ley will not get hurt. After hearing Bella's explanation, Ley finally breathes a sigh of relief and finds it hard to understand that Dell is just restraining himself because he perceives her as fragile. Our girl gets all riled up, gets her lace bikini back, and is planning to show Dell tonight something he'll never be able to refuse. While everything is going on, Dell approaches the madam as she is leaving the palace. He appears to be unhappy because he heard Ley's screams from a distance earlier, and as a result, he begins to question her ability to sew. But when Madame Harriena quickly reveals that she designed the Duchess an outfit for a romantic night, our guy blushes so hard. That blushing and surprise face is so cute. As night falls, Dell can't stop blushing, thinking that Ley must be wearing the outfit. But as Ley nervously enters their bedroom wearing her usual nightgown, his excitement shortly fades. However, his sharp vision didn't let him down tonight. The sight of Ley's black undergarment peeking out from under her nightgown and her embarrassed expression makes him want to tease her, and so the two of them start cuddling up to each other. But relax, everyone. Ley's monthly cycle betrayed her that night, so nothing really happened. A few days later, they planned a 3-day banquet for Leyland's birthday, inviting all important people in their province, which is a perfect time for Ley to put something to the test. Seeing how everyone gets terrified by Dell, Leyland decides to see if she's the only one who finds him attractive by suggesting he changed his hair blonde. This way, no one will be able to tell him apart, and they can really be themselves around him. Sir, I'm not mentally prepared for this new look. His hairdo, signature mole, and suit? Everyone say thank you, Leyland. Ley is ecstatic to witness everyone's reaction to Dell, while this guy is envious since he thinks she likes blondies like Asher. With a flush on her cheek, she reassures Dell that she's only into him, regardless of his hair color, making this simp blush as well. I love how open they are with their feelings. After that, they step into the banquet hall disguised, where, as expected, everyone is staring at Dell's good looks, but it starts to bother Ley, so she decides to hide her husband's face under her veil. Honey, this was your plan, right? Such a jealous couple. Oh my gosh, Dell then kisses her in front of everyone, leaving a lipstick mark on his lip. That just added to his handsomeness. There is really no stopping this couple, and I just can't handle them. Ley, on the other hand, is still dazed looking at Dell when her hat slips off, revealing her pink hair and causing everyone to recognize her as the Duchess. Ley has no option but to welcome everyone now that their cover has been revealed, and Dell shocks everyone by returning his hair to its original black hue. And that's how you make a memorable entrance. The Duke and Duchess are now on the throne, and Ley begins formally thanking everyone for attending her birthday and declares she'll be conferring titles tonight, which puzzles everyone given that only a few nobles are invited. Well, following her previous chat with the Emperor, she has extended an invitation to those who have played an active role in the administration of their region, regardless of social status, in an effort to remove the corrupt leadership. She begins by reinstating Bella's Duchess position and family territory, while conferring the title of Marquess on their head butler, Satella, and giving the Bernard territory to him, which had previously been ruled by the evil Baron Senthus, whom Ley got executed before. The location is a predicted cyclone site, but Satella insisted on Ley awarding him the land since he is in love with the land's daughter and wishes to return her taken land. Next, to everyone's amazement, Ley bestows titles upon deserving commoners. And that's not all. Dell, for the first time, takes the stage just to publicly express his gratitude for Ley's presence in his life, and to sprinkle his joy, he bestows properties upon everyone on top of their titles. The things we do for love, cuties. The hall is filled with joy as everyone chants the names of the Duke and Duchess, unable to contain their happiness. A really happy birthday indeed. Meanwhile, Purpla has finished preparing the wind seed for his revenge in some cave somewhere. Can he just stay in that cave forever and leave our couple alone? On the final night of the banquet, Dell consults Ley for tomorrow's plan. And our girl is really excited to go swimming because her swimsuit Madame Harriena design has recently arrived. but she's too bashful to invite Del because of her naughty thoughts. So she casually mentions how fun it would be to splash around in the water when the Emperor, in disguise, interrupts to wish her a happy birthday. While poor Stan is holding the palace for him, this guy is seriously everywhere, so Leyrin, being Stan's good friend, furiously tells the Emperor not to take advantage of Stan's efforts. Asher simply shrugs and shifts the conversation to inquire if she'd be willing to share some of her remarkable staff with him, which Ley flatly declines. She sighs and thinks that Purcell's distaste for being his empress stems from his immature behavior and his treatment of people like toys. Taking this opportunity, she tells Asher that he should know that Purcell merely wanted a quiet life, and that he should let her go if he really cares about her. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, Asher, who is certainly hurt, asks Leyrin to be his empress instead, which of course causes Del to give off a dark aura and warn him. But tonight, there's someone much more vicious than Del. Leyrin, who is enraged and threatens the Emperor with death, leading the two men to freeze in fear. The two lovebirds play all lovey-dovey again in front of the love-deprived Emperor, who takes Ley's advice, but before he leaves, asks for another piece of advice on whether or not a gift as extravagant as the Margarita Palace can win someone's heart. Del flinches when Leyrin responds that material things cannot win a woman's heart, as the palace is his gift to her. The Emperor takes one last chuckle at the distressed Del before going. Rest certain, Del. Leyrin will adore anything you give her. Del's anger at Asher for bringing up the Margarita Palace soon fades as he plants a kiss on Ley's forehead and promises to start planning their beach vacation tomorrow. To be more specific, Asher has been quietly lurking around Ley recently because he has an uneasy feeling that Purpla is going to make an appearance, and he wants to be present to prevent whatever he's planned. Alright, I suppose I should apologize for presuming he's just really laid back and does nothing. Instead of going swimming in a creek, Ley's surprise the next day is to find herself at a castle. The Margarita Palace is stunning and even has a pool in the front yard. But Del is unsure if Leyrin would enjoy his present after hearing what she said last night, causing Ley to finally understand why Asher had a smug expression before leaving yesterday. Pulling Del closer, she expresses her heartfelt appreciation for his amazing gift. Well, amazing is an understatement when she notices how sparkly the palace structures are and learns that the whole place is made of jewels. Here, Mr. Chef Husband starts grilling and even spoon feeds his wife as they start their vacation. I want what they have! And now that they've settled, the guards leave to give them privacy, leading Ley to stroll over to their massive pool and remove her dress to reveal her adorable white lace swimsuit. And Del can't help but blush. However, just as Leyrin is ready to dive into the water, Del tries to stop her, causing the two of them to fall in. In an outburst of extreme fear, he begins to embrace her closely, as if the water were her mortal enemy. I'm going to assume that his body subconsciously recalls the trauma he endured in a previous life, since the setting before was also on a beach. Ley is confused, but after realizing her husband views her as fragile, Ley tries to soothe him by revealing that she used to be a professional swimmer in her past life. She proceeds to demonstrate her exceptional swimming skills, leaving Del in awe of her incredible talent. Ley begins to float swimming, beaming with joy at having this chance to do what she loves, but is unaware that her beautiful expression is making Del blush so much that he kisses her. After that, they continue in bed and give each other their undivided attention. Finally! Del was unable to get any rest after that since his memories started flooding back to him after they consummated, and he realized that his overprotectiveness of Ley comes from his fear that she might break again. Suddenly, Ley, who is sound asleep, embraces him in an unconscious manner, causing him to flush once again. Just as he's ready to pull off something mischievous to his wife, Kolda appears and pulls his hair away from Ley. I find this really funny. Kolda starts ranting on about how she has been reviving Ley 7 times already because Del continues to do what he wants. OMG, calm down, lover boy! Del, on the other hand, isn't startled to see her, since now that his memories have returned, he remembers that before he killed himself, he made sure to transfer Kolda's soul to Leyrin to guarantee that she won't break again when they meet, thanks to Kolda's healing powers. Kolda is also the one who took Ley's past memories so she wouldn't be sad after reincarnating. But now that she has restored her memories, Kolda believes her job is done, so she transfers all of her abilities to the sleeping Leyrin and asks Del to absorb her. Being inside Ley, who is madly in love with Del, is excruciating for her, and the only place for her to rest is to be absorbed by Del and be adored by Leyrin through him. I still struggle to understand the logic of these gods. Del makes Leylin's requested ramen the following morning, and they get right back into their honeymoon under broad daylight, leaving their work concerns to Bella and Satella. As soon as the night falls, Ley sets out to teach Del how to swim, but this guy is so good at it that he might win an Olympic medal in no time. Del then carries Leyrin to show the stunning ocean-like pool they have, which contrasts nicely with the night sky. Ley gives him a troubled expression and says she can't repay him for everything he's done for her. But the lover boy is a master of pickup lines, and he assures Leyrin that having her for himself, even for eternity, is all he needs. They are so whipped for each other. Another great day for the pair, and it is pouring heavily today. Just as Leyrin is about to touch the raindrops, Del has a flashback of the rainy day they were together when Ley vanished, and in his panic, he rushes over to Ley to stop her. Ley is taken aback by Del's actions, so Del lets go and confesses that he got scared because the rain brought back bad memories. Knowing that Del remembers their past makes Leyrin anxious that he may develop feelings of resentment toward her. After all, Del's decision to end his own life and release the gods was because she failed on reincarnating. As she begins to cry, Del reassures her that choosing death was his choice, and it doesn't bother him that the gods were let loose. Del starts to cry as he expresses his fear of losing her again and how he had called to protect her. It is heartwarming to see that they have reconciled with their past. Now that their honeymoon is over, both of them return to their palace and immediately get to work. Bella informs Leyrin about the conflict between the first administration, which wants to restore the old system, and the newly appointed staffs who oppose them. Ley expects this to happen, and while it is hard to please everyone, she will not back down because this process is important to achieve a better system. After finishing up his work, Del shows up at Ley's office to shoo away Bella from Leyrin, which isn't very surprising, although Ley does notice that Bella's belly is bulging. Ooh, a baby bump! Ley is startled to hear people outside the house the next morning, and she soon learns that it is a labor strike. Marquis Haint was so vocal in his support for her reforms, so she is taken aback to see him at the head of the protest. As soon as Ley and Del approach, it becomes clear that these 115 subjects are fully loyal to the former king and the Sophen kingdom. But their true intentions are not to cause trouble. Rather, they want the Duke and Duchess's blessing to allow them to step down from their positions, having faith that the new government will guide the new kingdom to greater prosperity. Del gives them permission while the new bureaucrats, led by Bella and Satella, arrive to swear allegiance to them, which confuses Ley. Carrying Ley is a habit Del has always had, and so today he carries her to show her that their people truly acknowledge them now. Their recent coronation was merely ceremonial. Their subjects have never given them any real regard, so Ley is overwhelmed at the sight of their pledge today. In the end, Del wants nothing more than to see his wife happy, and he achieved just that. Look at that smile! Getting back to the grind, Satella drops by Ley's office with a letter from the Imperial Palace ordering them to a meeting in the capital in 2 weeks. Something must have happened. Just as they had agreed, Purpla has shown up to use Purcell's body as his vessel, and she follows his orders without question. In the blink of an eye, her eyes change color to green, signifying that Purpla has taken over her body. No! Poor Purcell deserves a happy ending too. Bella argues that Del could simply go alone, but this guy doesn't want to be apart from Leyrin, so the usual bickering begins, prompting Bella to sob since she desperately wants to be with Leyrin. Ley, on the other hand, has noticed Bella's mood swings increasing recently, so she offers her to join them. And Del, being the supportive husband that he is, accepts. That's pregnancy hormones for you. Now that Leyrin is by herself, she has a sudden realization. She needs to dispose of their divorce papers. So she quickly checks her documents and becomes concerned because they are nowhere to be found. Well, girl, you're not the only one who wants to burn the paper. Del gets his hands on it first and burns it in front of her before hurrying towards her with a troubled expression. Realizing that her husband still believes she wants a divorce, Ley sighs and claims him firmly before kissing him and declaring to be with him forever. Cuties. The fiction novel about their love story that Ley entrusted Katie with is finally finished 2 days before they travel to the Imperial Palace. She is overjoyed to read it, but what makes her blush so much is the drawing of Del's lovely face on it. Where can I get a hold of a copy of this book? Del knows who created the image, and as a fangirl, Ley wishes to get the artist's autograph because she is so amazed with how he drew Del. But this statement only made Del jealous. Del's serious expression is giving Leyrin the willies, and she realizes he might not understand the meaning of an autograph, so she hastily writes her first autograph to show him. Del's gloomy expression, however, has not vanished, so she caresses his face tenderly to reassure him that she is serious when she promises she will love him forever. Del then smiles, and it appears that he is merely acting envious because she is adorable when she is serious. The day of their trip to the Imperial Palace has arrived, and before they leave, a few of her aides begin clamoring for her autograph, and she discovers that she now has a fan club as a result of the novel. Once inside the carriage, Del brags about framing Leylin's first autograph, which makes Bella jealous and prompts Ley to agree to make one for her. And so begins Leylin's lengthy journey, listening to Bella and Del argue about who gets the biggest autograph. They have arrived at their first stop, and when Del takes a dozing Leyrin to their room, Stan's messenger approaches Bella and gives her a letter. While Bella appreciates Stan's congratulations on her reinstatement as a duchess, she finds it troubling that he wants her to visit his province so he can return her name. Stan did remark that he hated his duke name, Arbella, which the emperor forced him to use. So Bella guesses he dislikes the name so much now that he wants to return it to her, which makes her upset and sad. Shortly after, Del shows up in Bella's room to tell her that he hurried over to Bernard's territory but couldn't locate the wind seed, leading them to believe that Purpla had taken it to carry out his plan. Then Del talks about his quick encounter with Kolda, who asked him to seal her again after she bestowed Leyrin with her power. Even when they initially created Kaleid, Kolda chose to be absorbed first and sacrifice herself so that Kaleid could govern the other gods. Bella believes it is also time for her to be sealed now that Leyrin is finally here to take care of Del. Plus, Purpla is on the loose plotting a scheme. While Bella is adamantly requesting that Del kill her and absorb her abilities, images of Stan's face begin to flash through her head. She shuts her eyes, expecting Del to seal her, but instead he casually points to her belly, announces that he can hear the baby's heartbeat, and even knows that Stan is the father, much to Bella's embarrassment. Del assures Bella before he leaves that he can handle Purpla with his power alone, and that he is well aware that Leyrin does not want her to die either. Aww, our tough guy has really changed. Del begins to worry as he walks back to their room because he knows Leyrin will want a kid as soon as she discovers Bella is pregnant. He wants to solo his wife for a while, by which he clearly means at least 2,000 years. My dear sir, I believe that is excessive for a honeymoon stage, but I'm not complaining. When Leyrin wakes up in the middle of the night thirsty, Del advises making her own water and informs her that Kolda has actually passed her powers onto her. Del urges Leyrin to join her hands, and she gets startled when he unexpectedly licks it, making water eventually gush out of her hands. Even after she stops the water, Del continues licking. The beast shows no sign of stopping, and they go on a sweet evening together. Del has also shared with her everything about Kolda, including how she gave away her powers to her and then was sealed. And Leyrin can't help but be astounded at how much the gods love her. She still has no idea how to manage her water powers, and even now, when she takes a bath in the tub, she unintentionally purifies the water, making it crystal clear. They are now staying in a city close to the capital, and Leyrin is stunned to find that Del bought the entire mansion for them. After getting back into their romantic groove, these two abruptly end it when Leyrin receives a word that Stan has shown up at their place. Ley is the first to go, and she gets confused to find Stan and Bella in the corridor, both with long faces. Bella leaves the two to talk, but Stan doesn't have much to say to Leyrin because he really just came to see Bella. So Del sneaks in through the window and starts bringing up Bella to get him to stop wasting Layla's time. Stan chokes on his tea and bolts before Del has a chance to finish. That's what you get for disturbing Del's night with his wife. After deciding to go for a nighttime stroll, Leyrin and Del swiftly seek cover in a bush after overhearing Stan and Bella. Del merely smiles at Leyrin, implying that he knows something about the couple. It appears that Bella just misinterpreted Stan's letter when he stated that he wishes to return her name, when what he actually means is that he wishes to use the name together. He then kneels and proposes to Bella. My second parents! Bella starts blushing heavily, but because she didn't answer his proposal, Stan feels concerned and wonders if she doesn't feel the same way about him. They are then interrupted by our girl, who sneezes so loudly that they have no choice but to reveal themselves and retreat. After they've gone, Bella asks Stan to give her some space to think things over and ends their night. The next day, as they prepare to resume their trip to the capital, Bella requests some alone time with Leyrin, and Del surprisingly agrees to let the two talk privately in the carriage. Who says Del won't accompany them, though? In fact, Del is lying down on the carriage roof casually so he can still hear them. This sneaky guy definitely does not want to be apart from his wife. Inside their carriage, Leyrin discovers that Bella isn't opposed to the notion of marrying Stan, but her main concern is that she will be separated from Leyrin when it happens. Ley promises her that even if she marries and they both have the same title, they will be able to work together and share projects for their respective regions, making Bella beam a smile and admit that she loves Stan. It appears like Leylin's support is all Bella really needs. However, what really shocks Leyrin and makes Del sigh is her discovery that Bella turns out to be pregnant. Get ready, lover boy. She can't believe all of her friends are getting pregnant, and she breaks into tears, convinced that there must be something wrong with her body because she shows no signs of becoming pregnant. When Bella realizes Del is listening to them, she writes something on Layla's hand so he won't know and urges her to use Coldest healing powers on Del. Now Leyrin believes Del's body is the issue, and she's partially right because our guy is taking that contraceptive herb. At last, they have reached Del's residence in the capital and are welcomed by Aiden, the old man butler. Oh, I didn't expect to see him again. Aiden is astounded to watch Del, who has always had a violent air around him, transform into a softie in love. I know, right? Del suggests they go get some sleep because Leyrin is probably exhausted from their journey, but Leyrin protests and insists that she isn't tired at all. They rush to their room where they share a passionate kiss, while Leyrin starts to give Del her healing water. It seems like we'll be seeing kids sooner than expected. After 3 days, Stan arrives at their estate, but Leyrin is surprised when he brings the Emperor with him. Originally, she invited Stan so he could spend time with Bella, but the arrival of this Emperor, who is clearly lacking in love, ruined her plans. While the four of them are chatting, Leyrin discovers that Del has actually demanded that the Emperor declare her birthday a public holiday known as Starmus. Del simply kisses her forehead while Asher and Stan stare at them, envious. Just then, Bella enters the room, as this was meant to be part of Leylin's plan if not for the Emperor's interruption. Strangely, the room falls into a hushed stillness, and the Emperor is completely unaware that he's fifth-wheeling them. Bella suddenly breaks silence and requests to speak with Stan alone, which the stubborn Emperor refuses, leaving Bella with no choice but to accept Stan's marriage proposal in front of everyone. This time, it's Stan who gets all red and stuttery. Cutie. In addition, Bella shares with him in a casual tone that they're already expecting a baby girl, which only serves to further amaze him. They exchange loving glances, and it appears that their baby is pleased as it begins kicking in her tummy. So they leave the room to have her checked. Leyrin, who has just witnessed this, is so eager to have her own child, so she rushes off with Del to make one, leaving poor Asher behind. Asher can't believe that his friends are blissfully in love while he and Purcell are making little progress. He is beginning to believe Leyrin that he may have to let Purcell go. So he goes to her room for the last time to inquire about her feelings and resolves to go along with her decision. But when he breaks in, he finds Mint alone. Purpla, as we all know, has started using Purcell's body, and he is currently testing the seed of wind, forcing the ground to quake so violently that it wakes both Ley and Del. Del is aware that the rumbling is caused by Purpla's use of Arbella's power with his wind power, but he insists that he can easily fix the problem. He appears incredibly relaxed as he leans in for a kiss on Leyrin, but our girl stops him and uses her cute face to beg Del to stop the cyclone so that no one is harmed. As the obedient husband that he is, he decides to deal with the cyclone as soon as possible and return to her. The townspeople are becoming increasingly alarmed as the rumbling becomes increasingly unpredictable, leading them to discover a massive cyclone. But look who's here looking so dashing with his sword. Del, who concentrates and slashes the cyclone away with one powerful slash. People start cheering for Del, but Purpla, who is watching from afar, isn't delighted, as he expects the test to cause more damage to the town. Purcell confronts Purpla about his deceitful intentions, demanding that he refrain from entangling innocent people in his revenge. However, Purpla merely cuts her off before she can utter any more words. Del then rushes back to their room and informs the startled Leyrin that Purpla hasn't shown up, which explains why he was so quick, much to Leylin's relief. Now that Del has finished obeying her commands, the big gentleman requests his wife to reward him, which Leyrin gladly does. On the next day, as they make their way to Stan's estate, they see the Cyclone's aftermath. Despite Del's assurances that he can defeat Purpla, she can't shake the feeling that something terrible is about to occur. They have arrived safely, and Stan called upon them to ask Leyrin to lend her powers to save the people in need. He goes further by saying that a medicine that has been circulating for a while, supposedly a panacea that can treat any disease, is referred to as the god of stars' tears. As a result of his study, he discovers that the medical water was discovered near the Margarita Palace, precisely near the valley stream. So he asks if she could also purify their well so they can help in the recovery of the wounded, to which Leyrin gratefully agrees, but wonders how he knows all of this healing information. Stan appears shy because it is Bella who informs him of Leylin's abilities, but before they can continue with their discussion,
Leyrin simply suspects
Emperor
Purcell
comes
left
in,
to be free
panicked
of him,
that Purcell
to which
has
Del and Stan
vanished.
nod in agreement.
However, they realize that Asher might not be exaggerating after he informed them that Purcell would never abandon Mint, her daughter, only to avoid him. After that, Ley remembers Purcell telling her that she had a daughter and how she loved her, so Ley becomes serious and approaches Asher to inquire what really happened. Asher hasn't seen Purcell in a few days, but he went to her room last night to follow Leylin's advice to talk about Purcell's feelings one last time, and that's when he realized she's gone. Leyrin starts to feel sorry, so she assures Asher that they will help him in his search and suggests that he stay with Mint, who may be worried by her mother's sudden disappearance. But Ley is so taken aback when Asher states that Mint has no consciousness or soul. The night when Asher found out that Purcell was violated, he burst into his brother's room and realized Purpla was controlling his brother's body. So Asher assumed Purpla did it, but he was so betrayed when he learned it was his conscious brother who molested his woman that he ordered Del to kill him. Leyrin is still confused with all the Purpla wanting a vessel, so Del explains that Mint was born as a Purcell, which means a god's offering. Del believes that Flamentha, who we all know as Purcell, made a bargain with Purpla to give him Mint's body in exchange for destroying the Gaishi kingdom. However, because Mint is still at the palace, Del suspects Flamentha has begged Purpla to take her body instead. Our guy is so on point. Asher's heart is breaking, and he can't believe he's been calling the love of his life Purcell when the word has always been a terrible connotation. All he wants now is for her to return safely, so he begs them to assist him in saving Flamentha. Del then quickly tells everyone that he has found them, but as he continues, he passes out and falls to the floor. Everyone is stunned as Del collapses, and Leyrin panics. Bella immediately checks on him and informs everyone that it's only a temporary jolt and that Purpla's power has left his body. Del owns almost all of Purpla's and Yed's power, but the two energies linked in a chaotic way, and now that Purpla has his own vessel, he swiftly grabbed his powers away, causing the energies supporting Del's body to entirely collapse. Despite this, Bella assures everyone that Del will be well and awake in 3 days. Concerned about Purpla's potential actions before Del awakens, Leyrin sobs over the immense void that Del's absence causes. Outside their bedroom, she notices an unusual energy comparable to the nice scent that used to linger around Del. Leyrin, intrigued, chooses to open her door to see what's going on, but is surprised to see that everyone is unconscious. It is only then that she realizes that Purpla is the one who put them all to sleep. Purpla approaches Leyrin while in Flamentha's body and says he's been dying to meet her. Leyrin discovers that he truly desires her for himself. Ley requests that he leave Flamentha's body before they continue conversing, but he claims that he requires a body in order to fully utilize his powers and fight Del. Purpla assures her that if she agrees to be with him forever and bear his child, he will not harm Del or the humans, which causes Leyrin to react and remind him that he is in a woman's body. Ley is just too funny for me to take seriously. Purpla continues confessing his love and is willing to build a whole new world for her, but Leyrin informs him blatantly that they are not compatible, since she loves her world and Del is the only one she loves. Purpla is startled for a moment, but quickly smiles and tells her that if she does not come to him willingly, he will get rid of Del, which Leyrin will not allow, and starts showing off her water powers. Just as Purpla is about to stop her, the husband finally arrives. Del and Purpla disappear in an instant, and Leyrin spots them outside, flying and fighting. The debris from their fire and wind strikes is dropping like shooting stars, but thankfully, Leyrin is able to form a massive barrier to protect the palace and its residents from harm. Ley yells and orders them to fight in an isolated area, and once again, the dutiful husband complies by sending Purpla to a distant location. And he follows suit. Ley gives him a thumbs up and feels so proud of him. Even in the heat of battle, these two can't help but be adorable. The Emperor, Bella, and Stand rush over to Ley to thank her for the barrier, while the Emperor plans to follow them with his men. However, Bella thinks it's foolish for humans to get caught up in a war between gods, but Asher isn't rational and is only concerned with Flamantha's safety. Leyland then volunteers to go and bring Flamantha back to him, given that she is the reason Purpla is causing havoc. The only catch is that she doesn't know how to get there quickly enough. According to Bella, Kolda's powers can conjure clouds into a ride, and sure enough, it did just that. It transformed into a Dragon Ball cloud! Meanwhile, Purpla is struggling to keep up with Del when they suddenly hear Leyland screaming and notice that she is unable to control her ride. For the first time, the two men team up, with Purpla using his wind power to stop the cloud as Del catches her. Del and Purpla start lecturing her for doing something so risky now that she's safe, but Leyland stops them, saying that they are the ones fighting to death. She then moves over to Del and tells Purpla firmly that she could never join him since she is in love with her husband, which makes Purpla discouraged and reminds her that she used to love him as well. His statement confuses Ley, so Purpla explains that in their previous lives, when she loved Kaleid, who is a vessel to the gods, he was experiencing that love as well, and now Purpla wants all of Leyland's love for himself, forcing Del to become enraged and attack him. Purpla's comment has opened Leyland's eyes to the fact that the person she loved included Purpla within Del. However, she is certain that if they force Purpla to be absorbed inside Del, he will break free and become mad once more. So as the two are fighting, Ley takes Purpla with her in her Dragon Ball cloud so they can talk alone, and she asks Del to stay put and trust her. They are now somewhere far away, and Leyland strikes up a deep conversation with Purpla, discovering that he is actually a piece of the Kaleid she loved in their past lives. He reminisces about their time together, which makes Ley feel bad for him. Purpla starts sobbing as he expresses his desire for Leyland, but she doesn't see him, which isn't entirely accurate because Ley has always been enchanted by the sweet aroma that surrounds Del and recognizes it as Purpla. Del then arrives just in time, and she reveals that in order to love the Kaleid of her past, he must be whole, which includes Purpla being inside Del. She believes Purpla will not budge, but it appears that Purpla's love for her is genuine, and he wishes to make her happy, so he agrees to be absorbed by Del. Leyland realizes how much Purpla cares, so while holding his hand, she expresses how grateful she is, and assures him that they will always be together. Then he prepares to leave Flamantha's body, revealing his actual image, giving her Arbella's heart, and saying he loves her forever before Del absorbs him completely. Although the battle was somewhat disappointing, it proves that Purpla is an integral part of Kaleid, who is always willing to sacrifice anything for her. When it's finally over, Ley's knees finally give way from all the tension, and they are relieved to learn that Flamantha is unharmed. Leyland is overjoyed to finally meet the complete Del she loved in her past life, and as they embrace each other, they swear to love and never be separated again, believing that they can now be happy without worry. Flamantha had nearly fully recovered a month later, and she expressed her gratitude to Leyland and Del. Leyland then questions her about why she offers herself to Purpla, and learns directly from her that she made a contract with him that if he destroyed the Geisha kingdom, she would offer herself as a sacrifice. Given that it caused trouble for the kingdom and its people, Flamantha is now willing to accept any punishment they may impose, which Leyland did not disagree with and informs her that she'll be punished, and that it is to look after a soul. Bella then walks in with Mint, who is beaming from ear to ear. Mint immediately recognizes Flamantha and calls her mom. The girl gives Flamantha a warm embrace, and Leyland explains that the soul that will be in her care was actually a young girl who lost her mother and suffered so much that she ended her life. Flamantha expresses profound gratitude for bestowing a soul upon her daughter, while Leyland urges her to love the child as if it were her own daughter. The owner of the soul in Mint's body is Janet, and if you guys remember, Janet is actually the original owner of Arbella's physical body, who decided to give it to the Earth God. And now Arbella has her memories erased since, in her opinion, there's no use in remembering the hardships Janet endured. In short, this is Janet reincarnating as Flamantha's daughter. Seeing Flamantha and the child happy made Leyland happy that her plan worked out, and Flamantha decided to call her by her soul's name, Janet, from that day on. I really appreciate that they didn't disregard Janet and instead gave her a fresh start. As they continue, Flamantha requests one more favor, permission for her and Janet to relocate to Kaleid's province, which Leyland readily accepts but doubts about the Emperor's opinion. Just then, the Emperor's great entrance arrived to check on Flamentha's well-being and to ask her to return to her homeland, the Royton Kingdom. He's been busy inspecting the kingdom and is finished with the preparations, so Asher is now returning it to her, making Flamantha cry with happiness. And with that, the challenges they had experienced were resolved, and flowers began to grow across the continent in abundance. This is a result of the God of Stars' constant state of love! However, just as they are enjoying their time together, there comes a loud knock on the door. It's an urgent matter, and the Emperor has immediately summoned all the nobility in the capital to gather because he's going to make a major revelation about the Empire's future. All the nobles have gathered in the Imperial Palace as the Emperor, Asher, who is acting like a true emperor for the first time, begins his address by crediting Del with keeping the continent at peace by dealing with the cyclones and Purpla. It has been well known and acknowledged since the not-so-intense battle between Del and Purpla that Del is the god of justice and Leyrin the god of stars. What shocks our girl, though, is Asher's announcement that the Empire would be handed up to the gods, a move that obviously makes Del emperor. Knowing Del, I believe he knows this ceremony is for him and Leyrin, so he gladly comes up and accepts the position while wearing the crown, then changes the Empire's name to the Holy Empire of Leyrin. He's the boss, so why not? Even though Leyrin is still confused, she simply lets him lead her to the center and bestow the crown on her while asking her to be his empress. If devotion is a person, it is Del. Asher glances at them, relieved since the throne was also a shackle for him, and now that Purpla is gone, he can finally be free and follow the one he loves, Flamantha. Leyrin eventually learns that Asher did advise Del to take the throne, and the idea of being able to name an empire after Leyrin and have her name written in history is what convinced Del to accept. After a month, our main leads are finally having their well-deserved official wedding, and oh my, Leyrin looks so divine in her wedding gown! She finds it funny that she got tricked into marriage again and made herself empress, but seeing her gorgeous man on the altar makes her realize that this is the fraud she will always pick because it leads her to Del. They just make me feel so single. Meanwhile, everyone in Royton is overjoyed with their queen, Flamantha Royton, and her reign. In fact, they believe the kingdom has become more lively in the last month. Everyone in town is talking about how incredible it is that the former Emperor Asher stepped down to support their queen. What a beautiful thing love is. Asher is rehabilitating his arm that night when Queen Flamantha comes knocking on his door, and noticing that he's exercising, inquires about the progress of his arm. He cheerfully tells her that although Leyrin has healed and regenerated his nerves, he will still need time before he can move his arm properly. Since it's becoming late, Asher asks Flamantha why she visits him. This makes her feel embarrassed, and she plans to leave, but Asher abruptly stops her, likely because he wants to spend more time with her. Suddenly, he becomes very aware of his proximity to Flamantha, causing this charming cinnamon bun man to stutter and retreat to get her tea. Flamantha expresses her gratitude to Asher for returning the Royton Kingdom to her and assisting her in rebuilding her homeland. Asher gives her a simple smile and explains that he has been wanting to step down as emperor for a long time because he has no desire to be one, and all he wants is to be with her, which causes her to blush. He looks so manly and dependable. I love it! Flamantha then moves next to him and for the first time addresses him by name, asking if he still loves her after years of pushing him away, and even giving him the chance to find another lady. Girl, this guy will follow you anywhere! Asher is becoming emotional since they are finally discussing their feelings. He goes on to tell her how much he loves her and promises that only she can have his heart. The sincerity of his intentions is clear to Flamantha, who notices that the gleam in his eyes remains unchanged from the first time they met, causing her to cry while asking him if they can start a new chapter in their lives together. Asher embraces her with tenderness and promises to love her until the end of time. Oh, the ship is sailing. Leyrin has faced so much pressure after months of sitting on the throne. Not about her duties, but about having a baby. Sierra and Sir Hayden now have their own cutie potato, while Bella and Stan are expecting the baby to arrive soon. What surprised Ley more is that they named their baby girl Erin after her. While chatting and munching snacks, Leyrin becomes sick and wants to throw up, prompting Del to hurry over to apologize and announce that she's pregnant. Del feels down because this is not what he expected, but when Ley tears up and hugs him, he begins to reconsider. They do, however, have an issue, since Del can hear not 2, but 3 heartbeats in her tummy, and they are all boys. Imagining 3 sons that resemble Del is a blessing, so Ley, being Ley, isn't worried. Del eventually grins as he sees how happy Leyrin is and decides to start this thing called family. Leyrin gets awakened by a commotion made by this cute little Del, Lepel, who has just given her a morning whack. Del runs over to check on her, and see that baby clinging to his back? That's Deckard, and the other one who just woke up is Liad. The triplets are mini Dels, but they got their golden eyes from Leyrin. However, these adorable babies all have powers and are extremely chaotic. Leyrin is becoming concerned since the triplets' birthday is tomorrow, and everyone will come to see them because they think they're cute angels. But if you ask our girl, they are devils who can't talk. First-time parents be like. The palace is busier than ever as guests begin to celebrate the triplets' birthday. And while the babies are still asleep, Ley's, especially Del's, exhaustion is evident in their faces. Mr. and Mrs. Stoll's greet the Emperor and Empress, and Leyrin is overjoyed to see that the first potato she ever held in her arms has grown. Stan and Bella are the next to greet, along with their daughter, Erin, who looks exactly like Leyrin. Bella did design Leylin's body to her liking, thus she most likely made some changes to her daughter as well. We are talking about a god here, so I'm not even surprised. Asher and Flamantha are unable to attend the party due to the recent birth of their daughter, so Stan extends their greetings on their behalf. But Asher hasn't changed a bit, and he still makes fun of Del by boasting that he has 2 daughters while Del has none. That guy, really? But I love how he claimed Janet as his own. Just suddenly, the infants awaken and begin to unleash their powers, creating such a ruckus in the castle that they are forced to evacuate the visitors. Ley can only sigh as she watches the mayhem, but it appears that Del has something for her, so he walks her outside and reveals that he's created a playground for the triplets. But what playground, you may ask? Just a floating island in the sky. As soon as they arrive, Del explains that the site is secure for the triplets because he has already set up a barrier. The triplets begin unleashing their actual potential, making Ley and Del realize that the babies creating a little ruckus below them are being such good sons. Del has prepared something special for the 2 of them now that their children are distracted. He built their own barrier so they could finally have some time alone after being so busy for so long. After 10 years, the Kaleid kingdom has reverted to its original name of Sophen and is ruled by Rince, the prince who was adopted by Leylin's parents. He will also marry Princess Janet, Flamantha's daughter, in the distant future. Hayden and Sierra have one more son who works for Rince, while Katie discovered her calling and took on the task of writing another book, this time about Leyrin. At the same time, Del and Leyrin are now parents to a beautiful daughter, and they can finally tease Asher about it. The 2 families are peacefully chatting and drinking tea as they wait for the others when the triplets, who look so handsome, arrive with our little Leyrin, Erin, and her parents, Bella and Stan. With their children and friends by their sides, Del and Leyrin enjoyed life to the fullest. I am so happy that everyone got happy endings, and I will really miss our adorable couple. We saw many forms of love in the story, and now it's finally over. I know you guys will all get the love you deserve. It's probably out there searching for you. Thank you for watching till the end. See you in the next story.